Chapter 292. Because Yen Di had lost control of the clear Qi Grand Formation, the foreign dimension created by the formation instantly became unstable. Up in the sky, cracks would occasionally split open in space, violent power pouring out from within, as though the heavens were bleeding. This violent power might originate from Yen Di, Xian Dongping, or Yuan Tian. Regardless of who it originated from, descending from the heavens, it was like a natural disaster, posing a massive threat to broad Creed Mountain down below. A large portion of the clear Qi Grand Formation's control was currently in Xian Dongping's hands, its power unceasingly drawn over by him to deal with Yen Di. At this moment, broad Creed Mountain had already lost the protection of its guardian Grand Formation that had always protected it. The terrifying power emanating from the sky landed amongst broad Creed Mountain's numerous mountains, instantly causing destruction. Wherever it landed, there was a tragic scene of the earth quaking and mountains shaking. The mountains of the past had suffered a baptism of blood and fire today. The 8 peaks of broad Creed Mountain had all been tormented. While there was no longer the protection of the Grand Formation, countless broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners had resided and cultivated within the mountains of broad Creed Mountain. The majestic, vast true intent of the martial Tao, accumulated over time, also unceasingly condensed into mountain peaks. The mountains that looked ordinary were actually as tough as Vajra, not like when they had just been created, where experts of the martial Tao could easily flatten them. The current 8 peaks of broad Creed Mountain were something that even peak martial grandmaster experts would find hard to damage. However, a terrifying sword light descended from the sky at this moment, directly cutting the top of one of the 8 peaks, fire-leaving peak, in half. The mountain peak that had originally been smooth as a mirror became sharp and jagged once more. The terrifying impermanent devilish Qi that resembled roiling gray fog leaked out from the cracks in the sky, drifting all over broad Creed Mountain. Whether it was broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners or decimating abyss martial practitioners, all who came into contact with this impermanent devilish Qi felt their minds go blank, feeling suffocated. Martial practitioners with lower cultivation bases, enveloped by that blurry gray fog, instantly died, losing their lives. Even the devilish domain Grand Formation that Fang Zhuan was working hard to suppress was affected by this power, its originally already weak balance becoming increasingly unstable, the difficulty of suppressing it becoming even greater. After the cracks in the sky appeared, a terrifying destructive power leaked out before they instantly healed once more. But soon, a new crack would appear. What was even more worrying was that the cracks were appearing more and more frequently, and the intervals between them were getting shorter and shorter. Many a time, several terrifying cracks would appear simultaneously, bringing disaster to broad Creed Mountain. Elder, he who was guarding Yuan Zhengfeng's closed-door cultivation grounds on Converting Lake Peak, had a gloomy expression when he saw this. The old lady's hunched figure now straightened, the disproportionately huge broad Creed heavenly avatar standing amidst the numerous peaks of the broad Creed mountain range. Then it raised both its palms upwards. The majestic, vigorous, heavenly broad Creed palm possessed the power to overturn the heavens. Now that it was raised upwards, it resembled a pillar that supported the heavens. Under Elder He's efforts from the outside, the foreign dimension in the sky seemed to have stabilized a little, and it was no longer breaking down as frequently. However, the space around Elder He became more and more distorted, exerting pressure on her, causing her to bend more and more. At this moment, in the distance, a streak of light sped over towards broad Creed Mountain. They were precisely Yen Zhaoge, Shi Tai, and the others who had speedily returned to reinforce Lianhu County's devilish domain Grand Formation after having taken care of it. Led by Shi Tai, Yen Zhaoge and the others streaked across the horizon, hurrying towards broad Creed Mountain. As he neared, He just happened to witness the scene of the clear Qi Grand Formation suddenly erupting with an unknown change. It was as if it had been struck by two giant, formless arrows, enduring an immense impact. Looking from afar, the clear Qi Grand Formation seemed as wrinkled and distorted as a painting. Yan Zhaoge knit his brows, carefully feeling the changes in the Grand Formation as his expression involuntarily changed. Slightly, the Grand Formation has changed, becoming chaotic beyond compare. Still, there are traces of it amidst the chaos. Someone has done something to it. Su Fei's expression was solemn. Senior apprentice Uncle Yen will inherit the Grand Formation from Grand Master's hands. There is no need to make any special changes, just having to unleash the power of the formation normally. For this to happen, someone must be planning to seize the formation. Yan Zhaoge rubbed his temples. Xian Dongping. Apart from him, there's no one else. What's worse is that I'm afraid he succeeded. Everyone's heart sank. The mountain-guarding, grand array falling into Xian Dongping's control. What it signified was something that everyone was very clear on. Xian Dongping was originally someone who stood at the peak of the martial Grandmaster realm, only a step away from the martial saint realm. In the entire Eight Extremities world of the current martial grandmasters, there was only Yuan Zhengfeng who dared to say that he would definitely be able to defeat Xian Dongping. If Father was transcending mortality, he would also definitely be able to defeat that old ghost. Yan Zhaoge let out a long breath. However, with the clear Qi Grand Formation falling into Xian Dongping's hands, his strength would be equivalent to that of a martial saint. Adding in the Devil Saint Yuan Tian, even if Father can withstand it, Broad Creed Mountain would also be destroyed. Shi Tai's expression was solemn, his gaze not even shifting as he gazed in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain. Hu bared his teeth. Young master, that fluctuation just now, what exactly was it? Yan Zhaoge said. An attack from the outside world shook our clan's grand formation from two different directions, giving Xian Dongping a chance. Heaven falling formation, breaking thunder, anti-sun, earth returning talisman, 9 palaces, reversing artifact. It's probably one or a few of these things. Yan Zhaoge swiveled his head to glance at the southern fire domain. I remember now. I heard that the Sacred Sun clan once had a few anti-suns, but that was already a matter of 600 years ago. From the looks of it, they've found a few more. Yan Zhaoge smiled coldly as he looked towards the Eastern Earth domain. Activating the anti-sun requires a high-grade spirit artifact, Bao, at the very least. With 2 anti-suns simultaneously shooting over from 2 different directions, other than the Sacred Sun clan, the Heavenly Thunder Hall has also joined in today's matter. Shi Tai's expression was firm as iron. Pass today's tribulation first, and settle the scores one by one in the future. Feeling the changes in the spiritual chi of the formation, Yan Zhaoge suddenly said, Eldest apprentice uncle, please stop for a moment. As Shi Tai looked at him, Yan Zhaoge nodded solemnly. I might have a way, but first let me carefully analyze the specific changes in the clear Qi Grand Formation. All right. Shi Tai chose to believe in Yan Zhaoge, who had always had outstanding attainments in the Tao of formations. While his heart was burning with anxiety, he also halted. As soon as he landed, Yan Zhaoge knelt down on one knee, pressing his palm onto the ground. With Yan Zhaoge's palm as the center, numerous fine spirit patterns shockingly surfaced on the ground, resonating with the clear Qi Grand Formation that enveloped the surrounding area within the sky. Yan Zhaoge unceasingly calculated Shi Tai and the others standing guard by his side. Now, people suddenly approached from the distance. They were 2 girls, Feng Yunsheng and Xikong Qing. Seeing Yan Zhaoge and Shi Tai, they both heaved a sigh of relief. Eldest apprentice uncle, Master sent us out to welcome you. Quickly return to reinforce the clan. The situation there is very dangerous. Shi Tai asked, What are the specifics? Feng Yinsheng speedily answered. The Martial Repository's first seed elder Xian is a traitor, and the clear Qi Grand Formation very likely falling into his hands. Currently, he is joining hands with the Devil Saint Yuan Tian within the Grand Formation, battling senior apprentice Uncle Yen and Elder Zhang. Elder Zhang is heavily injured. The Heaven-Sealing Gorge has a devilish domain Grand Formation guiding the descent of the 9 underworlds. Senior apprentice Uncle Feng is currently suppressing it, while Elder he is guarding Grand Master in secluded cultivation. Master and the Heaven-Sealing Gorge's first seed Elder Gong are leading fellow disciples to clash with the decimating Abyss martial practitioners. The other side has quite a few experts. Hearing her words, everyone's expressions turned grave. To be continued. Chapter 293. Yen Zhaoge's expression was solemn as he looked in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain. There, the black, devilish Qi surged to the heavens, the formerly elegant green mountain resembling a ghost domain at this moment. The 9 underworlds descending within, Xi and Dongping seizing the Guardian Grand Formation and attacking Father together with the Devil Saint Yuan Tian and the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall watching from the side. Yen Zhaoge sucked in a deep breath. This tribulation is really difficult. Ahu looked rather worriedly at Yen Zhaoge. Young master, the family head, Yen Zhaoge did not speak, focusing in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain. Above the mountain peak, the space was distorting unceasingly, as though it might break apart at any moment, infinite destructive power about to pour out from within, descending towards Broad Creed Mountain directly below. As spiritual light flickered from the back mountains converting lake peak, 2 massive palms extended, as though propping up the heavens as they supported that distorted space, stabilizing it as much as possible so that it would not affect Broad Creed Mountain. That should be Elder He, guarding over Grand Master, also unable to sit still, having been forced to make a move. Yen Zhaoge looked towards the other side of the back mountain, in the direction of Water Ridge Peak, where devilish Qi surged to the heavens, virtually already completely enveloping Water Ridge Peak. However, within the domain of black devilish Qi, a bright, sword-light shot into the heavens, stabilizing the devilish domain, not expanding any further. From the looks of it, it is second apprentice uncle, forcibly suppressing the devilish domain Grand Formation. Because he was uncertain of who the traitor was, after analyzing the method to suppress the devilish domain Grand Formation, Yen Zhaoge had not provided it to the clan. The decimating Abyss's research and improvements towards the devilish domain Grand Formation were also improving unceasingly, from being unable to leave Hell at the start, only able to experiment within at the time of clear concealed lake, relying on the water veins originating from Hell, they were able to set up a formation. And starting from the Sand Region City, in places far from Hell, they could also set up a devilish domain Grand Formation, able to guide devilish Qi, changing the location where the Great 9 Underworld's door descended. Through analyzing the other party's devilish domain Grand Formation, Yen Zhaoge's proficiency in breaking formations rose unceasingly. Meanwhile, on the decimating Abyss's side, or perhaps it should be said that it was precisely the Lord of the decimating Abyss, Xian Dongping, through analyzing Yen Zhaoge's formation-breaking technique, had also improved his proficiency in setting up formations. Through the devilish domain Grand Formation, Yen Zhaoge and this bigwig had already clashed for quite a few rounds through space. Previously, in the situation where he had been unable to ascertain who the traitor was, Yen Zhaoge had only provided his father Yen Di with the newest method to suppress and break the devilish domain Grand Formation. However, Yen Di was currently engaged in a great battle with a powerful foe within a foreign dimension. He was naturally unable to send a clone to inform Feng Zhuan. Feng Zhuan was currently completely relying on his cultivation base to suppress the devilish domain Grand Formation. Fortunately, His cultivation base was much higher than Yen Zhaoga's, and his understanding of the 9 underworld's devilish qi also far surpassed that of others. It was just that in order to protect the first seat of the Heaven-Sealing Gorge, Elder Gong, and seal the Heaven-Sealing Gorge, he had been trapped by Xian Dongping, causing Fang Zhuan to expend a great deal of energy. Right now, he could only barely suppress the devilish domain Grand Array. Still, it had at least prevented the 9 underworlds from directly descending upon Broad Creed Mountain. Right now, the most dangerous and crucial situation is still on my father's side. Yen Zhaoga knelt on one knee, pressing his palm on the ground, unceasingly feeling the changes in Broad Creed Mountain's Guardian Grand Formation, while father is accompanied by the clear Qi robe, the opponents he faces, the Devil Saint Yuan Tian, and Xian Dongping, who has obtained control over a large portion of the Grand Formation, are equivalent to 2 martial saint experts. It's also thanks to Dad that he was able to hold off the 2 of them by himself. Otherwise, any one of them would have been able to wipe us out. The crux of the matter was that Yen Di's side had already completely gone all out, experts of the martial saint realm battling to the death as the heavens and the earth overturned. It was already very difficult for others to interfere in such a battle. Even transcending mortality, martial grandmasters were somewhat insufficient. This included Fang Zhuan. Even if Broad Creed Mountain achieved complete victory in the other battlefields with Fang Zhuan, Shi Tai, and the others all having their hands free, if they did not wrest back control of the Guardian Grand Formation, it would be very hard for them to help Yen Di. Yen Zhaoga sucked in a deep breath, and as soon as father is unable to hold on, all other victories would be meaningless as the overall situation would immediately collapse. We don't have much time left. He turned to look at Shi Tai. It's not that there isn't a way, but it's difficult. Because of external enemies, a change has occurred in the Guardian Grand Formation, thus allowing Xian Dongping to succeed. Now, we need to set things right. I have a way, but we need to split our forces into 3, carrying it out in 3 different places around Broad Creed Mountain. Yen Zhaoga said, those who carry it out must either have a sufficiently high cultivation base or be proficient in the variations of formations. I am willing to take one route, and eldest apprentice uncle can take the other. However, I don't know if there are enough people in the clan to take the 3rd route. Elder, he is protecting the clan, as well as Grand Master. How severe are Elder Zhang's injuries? Shi Tai looked at Feng Yunsheng and Sikong Qing. Junior apprentice brother Fang is suppressing the devilish domain Grand Formation, preventing the descent of the 9 underworlds, and is unable to come. If Elder Zhang's injuries are too severe, look for junior apprentice sister Fu. Yen Zhaoga now said to the 2 girls, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you. I have some new methods here to break the devilish formation and prevent the descent of the 9 underworlds. I need one of you to charge into the devilish domain Grand Formation and inform second apprentice uncle, while the other will go look for Elder Zhang and senior apprentice Aunt Fu, informing them of the method to correct the Guardian Grand Formation. Feng Yunsheng and Sikong Qing exchanged glances. The 2 saying simultaneously, I will go to the devilish domain Grand Formation to look for senior apprentice uncle Fang. Charging into the devilish domain Grand Formation was clearly more dangerous. Yen Zhaoga pondered for a moment. Now is not the time for pleasantries. Junior apprentice sister Feng, go look for senior apprentice uncle Fang. Ride Pan over. If you meet any enemies along the way, hide if you can. Junior apprentice sister Sikong, go look for Elder Zhang and senior apprentice Aunt Fu. Feng Yunsheng nodded. On the other side, Sikong Qing's gaze was resolute, her expression also not changing as she nodded obediently. Yen Zhaoga immediately told Feng Yunsheng the method to suppress the devilish domain Grand Formation. Feng Yunsheng didn't waste time on words. While there were still some areas where she didn't understand the workings of formations, she directly memorized it. Yen Zhaoga sucked in a deep breath. Be careful. You guys be careful too. Feng Yunshin nodded. Now, every second counted. After confirming that she had memorized it, she leapt onto Pan Pan's body. Pan Pan also didn't dare to be lazy now as he spread his claws and shot off. Yen Zhaoga then said to Shirtai and the others, the technique to correct the Guardian Grand Formation is not to be executed on broad Creed Mountain itself. Otherwise, it would be destroyed by Xian Dongping at the first moment. Therefore, with the heaven, earth, and man as the foundation, it will be executed simultaneously in 3 places outside of Broad Creed Mountain. The specific locations will be determined by my calculations. After telling Shirtai and Sikong Qing the 3 locations, he looked at Su Fei. This technique requires the cooperation of 2 people, one as the leader, the other as support. Therefore, senior apprentice brother Su, you will go with eldest apprentice uncle, acting as his support. After junior apprentice sister Sikong has found elder Zhang or senior apprentice Aunt Fu, do the same. If elder Zhang and senior apprentice Aunt Fu are both able to free themselves, then find another person to assist. With eldest apprentice uncle, senior apprentice Aunt Fu, and elder Zhang executing the technique, it will be easier to succeed this way. Su Fei and Sikong Qing nodded together. Yen Zhaoga swiveled his head and said to Ahu, Ahu, you assist me. Ahu nodded solemnly. Shirtai looked at Yen Zhaoga. While you are proficient in the variations of formations in the chaotic battle currently, there is actually no lack of Essence Spirit Martial Grandmasters and even Essence Talisman Martial Grandmasters. If the 2 of you were to encounter them, it would be dangerous. Chapter 294. Yen Zhaoga smiled emotionally. The entire Broad Creed Mountain is currently facing a great tribulation. Everyone's lives are like dead eggs, being in extreme danger. It is not just me. Don't worry, eldest martial uncle. I will also be careful and try to avoid contact with the enemy. I will hide if I can. After all, the most important thing now is to regain control of the mountain guarding formation. In terms of danger, junior sister Feng and junior sister Sikong are the same. You and senior brother Su are also facing danger. And in the entire Broad Creed Mountain, the person currently under the greatest pressure is my father. After all, Yen Di was restraining Yuan Tian and Xian Dongping with his own power, also obstructing them, preventing them from harming the others of Broad Creed Mountain. Looking in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain, Yen Zhaoga was very calm. The current him had long since become one with Broad Creed Mountain, enjoying the glory of the clan, enjoying the convenience of the clan's resources, as well as the protection of the clan, shielding him from wind and rain. So when he needed to stand up and bear the hopes of the sect, he would naturally stand up. If there was no danger, he would charge forward. If there was danger, he would charge forward even more. He would never back down. Eldest martial uncle, senior martial brother Su, junior martial sister Sikong, all of you take care as well. After taking his leave of Shirtai, Su Fei, and Sikong Qing, Yen Zhaoga immediately brought Ahu along, hurrying towards one of the 3 locations that he had determined. Time waits for no man. As Yen Zhaoga sped along, he proceeded carefully, avoiding others as much as possible. Currently, crooks and dragons were mixed together in the vicinity of Broad Creed Mountain, and under certain circumstances, it was hard to differentiate between friend and foe. In order to save as much time as possible, Yen Zhaoga was currently hurrying on with his journey. Heading south from Broad Creed Mountain, the outline of a city appeared on the plains. While they were already rather far away from Broad Creed Mountain, that terrifying aura of the 9 underworlds that shook one's soul could still be felt. Staying away from the demonic domain's great array did not have much effect on cultivators who had tempered themselves for a long time and had relatively firm wills. But to ordinary people, it still had the effect of confusing them. At this moment, the atmosphere in the city was restless and uneasy, and everyone was in a state of panic. While the people were frightened, they were also hostile to each other. The tense situation could break out at any moment, and panic could break out at any time. Yen Zhaoge speedily entered the city, the ordinary citizens completely unable to detect his presence. Within the city, there were Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners maintaining order, doing their best to calm the populace down. This place was one of the most important transportation hubs in the vicinity of Broad Creed Mountain, with many different kinds of resources being distributed here. The person currently in charge of this place was around 40 years of age, also a martial grandmaster of Broad Creed Mountain, named Hongwen. While he was almost twice as old as Yen Zhaoge, in terms of seniority, the two were actually of the same generation. Senior apprentice brother Hong, please help clear out a piece of empty land in the west of the city, not letting ordinary citizens approach. Yen Zhaoge did not bother with pleasantries as he immediately said upon seeing him, "I have an urgent need for it." Hongwen didn't waste any time and immediately nodded, "Leave it to me." While he was a mid-spirit vessel martial grandmaster, having entered the clan much earlier and being much older, Yen Zhaoge's position and authority in Broad Creed Mountain was extremely special, his authority equivalent to that of a first-seat elder. Therefore, while he did not quite understand what was going on, he still swiftly ordered people to help Yen Zhaoge clear the area. Hongwen was also a capable and experienced person. While the masses had already been panicking in the first place, being relocated further exacerbating the atmosphere of panic and anxiety, Hongwen still led his men to smoothly complete the mission that Yen Zhaoge had assigned to him. The two intersecting streets of the west of the city, one horizontal and one vertical, as well as the people in the nearby buildings, were all cleared out in the shortest possible time. Yen Zhaoge arrived at the intersection of the two streets, standing in the middle of the road. With a flip of his palm, jade light flickered. His sword was like the wind, the jade-green sword light dancing continuously in the air, leaving behind a mark in the air that did not dissipate for a long time. Very quickly, a massive pattern appeared before Yen Zhaoge. Sword in his right hand, Yen Zhaoge extended his left hand, spreading his fingers as he pressed downwards from the air. The massive rune that flickered with jade light landed on the ground. Swiveling his head to look at the surrounding buildings of the city, Yen Zhaoge sucked in a deep breath, raising the jade dragon sword with his right hand, pointing it towards the sky. Meanwhile, another spirit artifact appeared in his empty left hand, the flying thunder saber. After stepping into the martial grandmaster realm, Yen Zhaoge was already no longer limited to just a single low-grade spirit artifact. Two spirit artifacts, one pointing to the heavens, one pointing to the earth. Yen Zhaoge let out a light roar, streams of orochi emanating from the acupoints of his entire body. The winds and clouds surged, with Yen Zhaoge at their center, gradually forming a massive hurricane. This hurricane of orochi did not expand, always having Yen Zhaoge at its center, also using that massive jade talisman on the ground as its foundation. Gradually, the tornado also turned into a dark green color. Within the city, the restless and uneasy emotions of the numerous commoners seemed to have turned tangible, condensing together at this moment, converging towards that jade green hurricane being swept within. Afterwards, the jade light of the massive spirit talisman beneath Yen Zhaoge's feet gradually faded, turning pure white. As the spirit patterns twisted, their structure gradually became more and more complex, gradually expanding into a small, intricate, yet profound formation. At the core of the numerous spirit patterns converged, an ancient character appeared. Human. The meaning of this ancient character was human. Yen Zhaoge wanted to use a unique technique to wrest back control of Broad Creed Mountain's guardian grand formation from Xian Dongping's hands. It needed to be set up in a specific location, according to the positions of heaven, earth, and human. The place that Yan Zhaoge was currently occupying was precisely the human position. Shi Tai and Su Fei, meanwhile, headed for the heaven position. He had Sikong Qing look for Fu Enshu and Elder Zhang, but for some reason, no one had come to the human position. Yan Zhaoge could only hope that they would be able to rush over to the earth position. This technique was not something that Yan Zhaoge could succeed on his own. It required all three of them to work together. As for whether or not he could completely succeed, reversing the situation, Yan Zhaoge also did not have complete confidence. The only thing he could do was to do what he had the ability to do to the best of his abilities. Who? Yan Zhaoge called out, having already received instructions earlier, who now went forward, crouching on the ground, pressing both hands on the spirit formation on the ground. The radiance on the human character grew brighter and brighter, but just at this time, a commotion suddenly resounded from the distance. Swiveling their heads to look, Yan Zhaoge and Ahu saw a group of people currently rapidly approaching. The one at their head was a late spirit vessel martial grandmaster. Yan Zhaoge recognized him as well. Similarly of Broad Creed Mountain, he was called Zhu Qian. It was just that the current Zhu Qian and the group of people behind him had clearly already fallen to the dark side. They rampaged their way, slaughtering all who stood in their way, their target being Hongwen and the other Broad Creed mountain martial practitioners. What's going on? Yan Zhaoge knit his brows. Who thought for a moment before answering. He seems to have been on bad terms with Hong when in the past, having a personal grudge. From the looks of it, his mental state is leaning towards being lawless and out of control, coming to find trouble for revenge. Before he had finished speaking, Zhu Qian saw Yan Zhaoge instantly ignoring Hong, the blood-red light within his eyes surging madly. Zhu Qian howled in rage. People of Yuan Zhongfeng's lineage, to think that you would also have such a day. Chapter 2, 95. Seeing Zhu Qian's look of enmity, his eyes exceptionally red, Yan Zhaoge couldn't help but feel a little baffled. Zhu Qian ignored even Hong when as he rushed towards Yan Zhaoge. Hongwen, however, couldn't ignore him as he hurriedly drew his saber and blocked him. Executing the 8 sceneries spirit saber of Broad Creed Mountain's direct lineage, his aura chi rampaging with infinite variations, ingenious and agile, already having a deep understanding of it. Zhu Qian's eyes shone with a blood-red light as he said coldly, "You're courting death." He also chopped out with a saber, but it was of a different style, tough beyond compare, domineering as it was another saber art of the 8 extreme arts, chaotic elements uniting saber. As their saber chis clashed, Hong, when saber chi instantly broke apart unceasingly. The chaotic elements uniting saber was originally the fiercest martial art of the entire 8 extreme arts, and Zhu Qian's cultivation base was also higher than Hong Wen's. As his saber expanded, saber light swept through the entire sky, resembling piercing strong gales that seemed able to cleave apart mountain peaks. Hong was well aware of the difference in their cultivation bases. Also extremely rich in battle experience, he didn't clash head-on with Zhu Qian, just moving about unceasingly. While he didn't know whether Yan Zhaoge and who could defeat Zhu Qian, the two were currently clearly focused on setting up the formation, not having the time to care about anything else. Hongwen only hoped to delay Zhu Qian's footsteps now, such that he was unable to approach the two. However, after falling to the dark side, Zhu Qian's strength had improved a step further as his chaotic elements uniting saber unceasingly chopped down towards Hongwen. He and Hong, when originally already had enmity between them, now he was even more merciless, his killing intent overflowing as he wanted to slay Hong when on the spot. Within the formation, most of Yan Zhaoge's energy was used on stimulating the human character, but some of it was also split off, falling on the battle between Zhu Qian and Hong Wen. Ahu asked from the side, "Young master, what did this madman say just now?" Yan Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. "I have some impression. He can be considered Xian Dongping's direct disciple." Ahu grinned. Being able to cultivate the 8 extreme supreme arts and become a great grandmaster, the sect didn't mistreat him, right? Seeing Hong Wen in danger, Yan Zhaoge raised his voice slightly, saying, "The clan indeed did not mistreat him, but this person is narrow-minded. When a fellow disciple offended him, he intentionally played dirty during a tempering session, nearly causing that fellow disciple to be heavily injured. First Martial Uncle is the first seat of the disciplinary hall, and he interfered in this matter. The evidence is conclusive, and he revoked his chance to be promoted to a core disciple," Yan Zhaoge said mildly. Afterwards, he continued to do similar things, committing crimes one after another until he completely lost the chance to have the black border on his blue robe. Hearing Yan Zhaoge's words, Zhu Qian, who was currently clashing with Hong Wen, was instantly greatly enraged, hacking Hong Wen into retreat with a saber before pointing his saber towards Yan Zhaoge. "A bunch of nonsense. You almost killed that brat surnamed Yi in the Sealing Dragon Abyss. Why didn't you receive any punishment? Why were you repeatedly rewarded afterwards? Isn't it precisely because you are Yan Di's son? Shirtai and your father are both disciples of Yuan Zhengfeng." Yan Zhaoge rolled his eyes. "I have the blood-soul recollection ceremony to prove that I am definitely innocent, while you have conclusive evidence to prove that you definitely broke the clan's rules. If the two of us were treated the same, wouldn't that be treating the clan's rules as child's play?" Zhu Qian's eyes were bloodshot as he spat. "Pooh, it must be Shirtai who shielded you, helping you to give false testimony." Yan Zhaoge smiled, shaking his head. "What you think is your own business. Sadly, it is not the truth that you say." The saber light in Zhu Qian's hands lit up as he suddenly chopped fiercely towards Yan Zhaoge. "Talkative brat, I'll first slaughter you before we talk." Yan Zhaoge's expression did not change as the jade green hurricane around him rotated, instantly deflecting Zhu Qian's chaotic elements' uniting saber. Currently, as the hurricane rotated, those below the Essence Spirit Martial Grandmaster realm would be hard-pressed to break through it, while Zhu Qian also possessed a low-grade spirit artifact. Also being at the 3rd level of the Martial Grandmaster realm, the late spirit vessel stage, he was still unable to break through the obstruction of the hurricane, injuring Yan Zhaoge. Within his yellowed eyes, a blood-red light surged madly as his entire person appeared even more frenzied. The power of the spirit artifact saber within his hands increased a step further, saber light flickering as he wanted to forcibly break through the jade green hurricane. Yan Zhaoge watched this scene calmly. "Killing me, you don't seem to be able to do it." The calmer Yan Zhaoge's expression was, the more Zhu Qian felt his heart burn. However, seeing that he was truly powerless to break through the obstruction of the jade green hurricane, while Zhu Qian's heart was filled with killing intent, his mind instead calmed somewhat. He said coldly, "If you hide in this turtle shell, I'll kill everyone else first." Zhu Qian swiveled his head, roaring fiercely, "Kill everyone in the city, not leaving a single one alive." The others who had come along with him and were currently clashing with the martial practitioners of the plaza were being held up by Hong Wen and the others. Zhu Qian prepared to withdraw and take action himself. However, now he suddenly discovered that he had actually also been sucked in by that jade green hurricane, unable to extricate himself. Looking at him, Yan Zhaoge suddenly laughed. "That's why I say that many times. It's not as you think that things will really be as you think they are." As the jade green hurricane expanded, it had already completely trapped Zhu Qian, only able to advance, unable to retreat. Zhu Qian's ferocity was also stimulated as he howled madly, continuing to charge towards Yan Zhaoge. However, that jade green hurricane resembled shackles, also tightening more and more as it obstructed Zhu Qian's movements. Zhu Qian was enraged, yet could do nothing about it, until he suddenly discovered that the jade green hurricane before him was gradually turning golden. Meanwhile, the runes beneath Yan Zhaoge's feet also turned from pure white to gold. Zhu Qian suddenly felt his body loosen, the hurricane imprisoning him suddenly relaxing as it expanded outwards. While it still obstructed his path of retreat, it no longer obstructed his charge towards Yan Zhaoge. He roared like a tiger, the chaotic elements uniting saber that had accumulated an innumerable amount of despondency, chopping viciously towards Yan Zhaoge. This saber caused Zhu Qian to suddenly feel as if he had been enlightened. Having been stifled for so long, now that he could finally relax, he had never felt so carefree before. Zhu Qian could be sure that this saber had surpassed his previous limits, being the strongest saber he had ever unleashed in his entire life. While he had long since heard of Yan Zhaoge's shocking strength, Zhu Qian did not believe that at his unprecedented peak, a late spirit vessel expert, he would still be defeated by an early spirit vessel expert. However, just at this time, a jade light flashed before his eyes. Yan Zhaoge held the jade dragon sword in his right hand, a Big Dipper sword, stably sealing Zhu Qian's saber. At the same time, Yan Zhaoge released the flying thunder saber with his left hand, raising it upwards, flipping his wrist. A terrifying force that resembled the overturning heavens and earth descended towards Zhu Qian's head. Heavenly broad creed palm. Zhu Qian raised his left hand, his entire body's aura chi surging as he blocked this terrifying palm. However, before he could regain his wits, Yan Zhaoge executed the heavenly broad creed palm with finger-flicking shocking thunder, immediately exerting force a second time. The terrifying force directly crushed Zhu Qian. Yan Zhaoge said mildly, "Did you think that the hurricane blocking my path just now was because I felt that I couldn't beat you?" Chapter 296. What did it feel like to be pressured by Mount Tai? Zhu Qian had never tried it before, but he felt like he was currently facing the pressure of Mount Tai. As Yan Zhaoge's terrifying palm pressed down, the bones of Zhu Qian's entire body emitted cracking sounds. From the pores of Zhu Qian's entire body, terrifying fine blood sweat seeped out, dyeing him completely red. Clenching his teeth, Zhu Qian stimulated his aura chi. Within his dantian, his aura chi that was filled with spirituality returned to its original simplicity, forming an existence like the great earth, resembling fertile soil, able to nurture even more miraculous power. What Zhu Qian had gained from cultivating in the martial Tao, along with the spirituality of the heavens and the earth, transformed into a spirit seed, being nourished within that spirit soil. Finally, the spirit seed gradually underwent a qualitative change, resembling a seed sprouting, beginning to be reborn. A powerful force was born from this, forming the powerful foundation of a late spirit vessel martial grandmaster. A martial practitioner's true martial spirit was already gradually beginning to take an embryonic form. Zhu Qian stimulated his spirit seed, power surging madly as he wanted to prop up the sky overhead once more. However, Yan Zhaoge did not give him this chance, exerting force even faster than Zhu Qian. Pushed by finger-flicking shocking thunder, Yan Zhaoge's third strike of the heavenly broad creed palm mightily descended, first defeating the power that Zhu Qian had just unleashed, nipping it in the bud. A violent force that seemed like the heavens collapsing and the earth collapsing completely destroyed all of Zhu Qian's resistance and hope. Zhu Qian's arm was jolted away, Yan Zhaoge's palm descending, smashing his head into smithereens. As though he had done something insignificant, Yan Zhaoge ignored the collapsed Zhu Qian before him, instead stomping his foot forcefully. Accompanied by Yan Zhaoge, Stomping on the ground, the golden spirit patterns continued circulating. In the air above his head, complex, profound spirit patterns also appeared, resembling a greatly shrunken version of broad Creed Mountain's Guardian Grand Formation. These spirit patterns merged with the spirit patterns beneath Yen Zhaoga's feet, before streams of qi expanded in all directions. The streams of qi extended far into the distance, soundlessly merging with the true clear qi grand formation. Standing on the golden spirit patterns, Yen Zhaoga could only feel his vision changing somewhat, as though he was looking down from the clouds. Human position established. Yen Zhaoga let out a long breath, not relaxing as he instead made use of his technique to link up with the clear qi grand formation, analyzing this massive formation a step further. Through his conscious and diligent tutoring, Yen Zhaoga's attainments in formations were rather outstanding. However, as one of the 6 great sacred grounds of the 8 extremities world, broad Creed Mountain's Guardian Grand Formation naturally had its own extraordinary aspects. While it was powerful, its formation theory was also profound and profound. After Yen Di had taken over the clear qi grand formation from Yuan Zhengfeng, Yen Zhaoga also being his son. However, some rules could not be disregarded, as he would not easily pass down the profundities of the clear qi grand formation to Yen Zhaoga. At the end of the day, Yen Zhaoga's understanding of the clear qi grand formation was limited. Now, he had to make the best use of his time to extrapolate it. However, to Yen Zhaoga, this clear qi grand formation was also not completely untraceable. Its source still originates from the legacy of the grand clear lineage. Still, through the improvements made by generations of broad Creed Mountains experts, there are already many differences. Yen Zhaoga gradually understood what an intricate formation. Having suffered 2 anti-suns that had the effect of breaking the formation earlier, the abnormalities in the formation were rather severe. However, it can still be put right. Yen Zhaoga gazed in the direction of broad Creed Mountain, at the same time unceasingly deducing the changes in the formation. It would be rather difficult for Father to wrest back control of the formation. However, we can strip control of the formation from Xian Dongping's hands, shifting it to one of our heaven, earth, and human positions. While Yen Zhaoga was deducing the formation, who was also free. However, he did not go far, instead remaining where he was, guarding Yen Zhaoga as he remained vigilant against all disturbances in the surroundings. Hong, when led a group of broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners, scattering in all directions to kill the decimating abyss martial practitioners who had entered the city alongside Zhu Qian. As Yen Zhaoga analyzed the formation, his heart suddenly jolted slightly. Standing on the human position, he could feel yet another force merging within the clear qi grand formation. That force originated from his own technique, the earth position of the heaven, earth, and human positions. Yen Zhaoga closed his eyes, his mind sinking into the formation. Within the darkness of his consciousness, numerous spirit patterns that flickered with white light surfaced. A golden speck of light appeared beneath Yen Zhaoga's feet, located at the periphery of the white light formation, representing the human position that Yen Zhaoga was in. In the distance, at the other end of the white light formation, another golden speck of light lit up. Is it Senior Apprentice Aunt Fu or Elder Zhang? Yen Zhaoga felt relieved. His plan had already succeeded by 2/3. Opening his eyes, Yen Zhaoga felt that terrifying aura that originated from the 9 underworlds and confused one's mind seemed to be slowly weakening. Gazing into the distance in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain, Yen Zhaoga could vaguely see that the black devilish qi that shot into the skies and suffused Broad Creed Mountain had dimmed somewhat. Good. Yen Zhaoga nodded, letting out a long breath. From the looks of it, Junior Apprentice Sister Feng has also successfully passed on my technique of suppressing the devilish domain grand formation to Second Apprentice Ant. With second apprentice Ant's cultivation base, as well as her own understanding of the decimating abyss and the 9 underworlds, there was immediately such an effect. The earlier disadvantageous situation was currently being successfully reversed bit by bit. Yen Zhaoge stood in the middle of the street, surrounding the massive rune. Numerous spirit patterns extended outwards, connecting with broad Creed Mountain's grand formation. Feeling the various changes in the circulation of the formation, Yen Zhaoge unceasingly calculated within his heart, the human position and position are already in place. As long as the heavenly position is in place as well, I will be able to reverse the situation in a single stroke. The human character beneath Yen Zhaoge's feet appeared a bright golden color, as though the wills of countless people had been gathered here. Under the combined effect of the clear Qi grand formation and the human character, the originally restless and uneasy hearts of this city had now gradually calmed down. While they still felt terrified, they would not continue to be influenced by the aura of the 9 underworlds, infinitely magnifying the negative thoughts in their hearts. Yen Zhaoge gazed in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain, then turned to the other side. There, in Yen Zhaoge's projection of the 3 talents technique, was where the heaven character should be set up, being handled by Shi Tai and Su Fei. However, currently feeling the changes in the clear Qi grand formation, Yen Zhaoge saw that Shi Tai and the others had still yet to successfully establish the heavenly position of the 3 talents positions. The 3 talents positions had to circulate simultaneously in order to be effective, wresting back their clan's guardian grand formation from Xian Dongping's hands in a single stroke. Comparatively speaking, Shi Tai's path was the strongest and most stable path that he had predicted. However, with no signs of activity even after so long, Yen Zhaoge's heart gradually rose up. Before the 3 talents technique was fully activated, he could not leave the human position on his own. Now, he could only wait where he was. Yen Zhaoge's brows were knit tightly as he gazed in the direction of the heavenly position, his expression solemn as never before. To be continued. Chapter 297. In the sky, a stream of light streaked across. As Yen Zhaoge hurried over to the city where the human seat was located, Shi Tai brought Su Fei along in hurrying over to where the heaven seat was located. Shi Tai's eyes suddenly flashed as he looked into the distance. In that direction, he sensed a powerful and ferocious aura flickering, not unfamiliar. It seemed to be the scaly dragon king, Sima Chue. The other party seemed to have noticed Shi Tai's presence as well, but he seemed to be apprehensive and didn't come over. Xue Fei looked towards Shi Tai, who retracted his gaze, saying calmly it was Sima Chue. Master. Xue Fei looked worriedly at the wound on Shi Tai's chest. Shi Tai shook his head. Don't worry, I'm fine. Xue Fei did not say anything else, but the worry in his eyes did not decrease in the slightest. Shi Tai continued flying with Xue Fei. After a while, he looked down. There, a boy about 11 or 12 years old was fighting with an enemy. Even though he was still young, he was already a Zongshi realm cultivator. His blood and qi were like dragons and elephants, and he was like a young dragon, slaughtering his opponents with ease. It was obviously Shi Tai's new disciple in recent years, Ing Longtu. At this moment, Ing Longtu still looked a little dazed, but he was incomparably focused. His actions were not cruel and ruthless, but he still remembered the teachings of his seniors and senior brothers and sisters. Mercy to the enemy was cruelty to oneself. Ing Longtu sent an opponent flying with a single punch, attracting the attention of an opponent with a higher cultivation base. His opponent pounced at him, but just as he was halfway there, his entire body stiffened and he collapsed to the ground, dead. The other decimating abyss martial practitioners around them all suffered the same fate. Shi Tai did not even need to make a move against these grandmaster-level martial artists. Just the aura of his fist intent could easily kill them on the spot. Ing Longtu sensed his master's aura and raised his head, revealing a joyful smile. Let's go together. Shi Tai did not waste any words, directly sweeping up Ing Longtu as well. His footsteps did not stop as he continued flying towards his destination. Ing Longtu stared blankly at Shi Tai and Xue Fei. Master, senior apprentice brother, there are many enemies attacking up the mountain. Su Fei said, Don't worry, Han Long, we're going to deal with them right now. Ing Longtu nodded vigorously. The master and disciples rushed all the way, very quickly arriving at their destination in the direction that Yen Zhaoge had told them about earlier. This was a mountain peak outside of Broad Creed Mountain, towering high amidst the surrounding continuous mountain ranges, seemingly about to pierce through the clouds. Shi Tai landed on the top of the mountain and punched out. Rays of light appeared and gathered into a huge rune that landed on the top of the mountain. The light shot straight into the sky, forming a faint pillar of light in the sky. Shi Tai raised his hand, and with him as the center, a tornado formed, enveloping this lonely peak. Under the envelopment of the tornado, streams of spiritual qi in the world were drawn over and gathered unceasingly in this place. The talisman patterns twisted and gradually expanded into a small and profound formation. The patterns of the formation flickered with a pure white luster. At the core of the formation runes, an ancient character appeared. Oh my God! The meaning of these ancient words was heaven. Seeing this, Xue Fei knew that it was time for him to make a move. He immediately knelt on one knee and pressed his palms on the rock at the top of the mountain. The radiance of the heaven character became even brighter at this moment. Ing Longtu stood to the side in confusion, looking curiously at his master and senior brother's actions. As time passed, the flickering radiance of the spirit patterns gradually turned from pure white to golden. Shi Tai and Xue Fei both raised their spirits. According to Yen Zhaoge's words, this meant that they were about to succeed. Now, however, Shi Tai said calmly, according to Zhaoge, the current situation is actually already on the right track. His gaze swept between Xue Fei and Ing Longtu. While two people are still needed to maintain the technique, Xue Fei and Longtu, the two of you can also do it, just that it will take a little longer. Hearing his words, Xue Fei's pupils abruptly dilated. Enemies are attacking? Shi Tai's face, that was firm as a boulder, did not change in the slightest. There are people approaching this place with ill intentions. 3 people, all late essence talisman martial grandmasters. Hearing his words, Xue Fei's gaze was firm and heavy, but his expression also turned grave. Shi Tai said, I will go block the enemies. Xue Fei, make the best use of the time to tell Longtu the method. You will take over my position as the leader, with Longtu assisting you. He looked earnestly at Xue Fei. The bigger picture is the most important. We must definitely wrest back the clear qi grand formation. Xue Fei could not conceal the worry within his eyes, but he did not waste time on words, his expression incomparably grave as he exhaled. This disciple will do his best. Shi Tai nodded, his figure leaping as he left the peak of the mountain. He flew at an extreme speed, doing his best to distance himself from the mountain peak where the heaven character was taking the initiative to meet the invading enemies. After a short while, Shi Tai halted, standing in midair as he gazed quietly into the distance. On the horizon, 3 streaks of light flickered, very quickly arriving before Shi Tai. Shi Tai's gaze swept across the 3 people before him, his expression devoid of sorrow or joy as it was calm as still water. The 3 of you, long time no see. He recognized all 3 of his opponents. One of them, a gray-bearded old man, was even incomparably familiar. It was precisely Elder Wang of Broad Creed Mountain, of the same generation as Yuan Zhengfeng, Xian Dongping and the others having entered the clan even earlier. Elder Wang had been the first to be exposed by the Heavenly Thunder Hall. His identity as a spy of the decimating abyss had been exposed, and he had also been the strongest decimating abyss martial practitioner of Broad Creed Mountain before Xian Dongping. Afterwards, this old man had been imprisoned in the Heaven Sealing Gorge. Today, after Xian Dongping had heavily wounded the first seat Elder Gong of the Heaven Sealing Gorge, he had released all the major criminals imprisoned within, with Elder Wang as their leader. Looking over, Tai couldn't help but feel desolate. He saw that Elder Wang's eyes were yellow, a blood-red light shooting out of them, shockingly having already completely fallen to the dark side. Beside Elder Wang was a black-robed old man, white hair and a youthful face, yet not having the air of a transcendent being at all, similarly having completely fallen to the dark side. Tai also recognized this person. He was a remnant elder of Black Nightmare Mountain named Yang Nia. Currently, Black Nightmare Mountain had a total of 2 late Essence Talisman Martial Grandmasters, attacking Broad Creed Mountain together this time. One of them had already been killed by Broad Creed Mountain's Grand Elder, the Transcending Mortality Martial Grandmaster Zhang Kuan, with a single heavenly Broad Creed palm. Yang Nia was the other, currently coming before Tai. The third person was the Scaly Dragon King, Sima Chue, who had previously clashed with Tai a few times. Elder Wang looked at Tai, his face indifferent, while Sima Chue's gaze fell on the wound on Tai's chest. Tai, even if your entire body is made of metal, how many nails can you still hit now? Yang Nia looked coldly at Tai. Broad Creed Mountain will definitely be destroyed today. No one will be able to stop it. The terrifying pressure of 3 late Essence Talisman Martial Grandmasters enveloped the heavens and covered the earth, virtually causing space itself to freeze. Against 3 alone, Tai's expression did not change as he calmly raised his arms, flashing his fists. A voice that was firm as iron resounded between the heavens and the earth. Dream on. To be continued. Chapter 298. Suddenly, a dazzling light lit up between heaven and earth. Countless talismans flew about, colliding with each other, destroying large amounts of them. The remaining talismans were divided into 4 groups and gathered into a large number of talisman arrays. Then, as the talisman arrays intertwined, huge talisman arrays appeared in the air. Tai's body was surrounded by a golden altar. The size of the altar continued to shrink, becoming more and more condensed. From it, an indestructible true intent of the martial Tao that could not be destroyed by 10,000 tribulations emanated. Opposite him, Elder Wang, Sima Chue, and Yang Nia each erected their own heavenly altars. 3 altars, 1 white, 1 black, and 1 purple, suppressed the 4 directions. A saber appeared in the hands of Black Nightmare Mountain's longtime elder, Yang Nia. No saber light could be seen, only boundless whirlwinds in pitch-black darkness. He was the first to attack Tai, the supreme technique of the Black Nightmare Mountain's direct lineage, the West Pole Purple Chi, activated to the extreme. The Purple Chi Sky Wave Saber, with the power to split the heavens and the endless black nightmare storm, chopped down on Tai's head. The profound light divine armor on Tai's body lit up as he did not dodge or evade, meeting it with a punch, forcibly clashing with the extreme West Purple Chi that Yang Nia had activated with the high-grade spirit artifact, the Splendor Nightmare Saber. Both sides collided head-on. Boundless golden light and purple chi exploded and dispersed in the surroundings, sweeping up waves of violent gales that swept wildly in all directions. Above Tai, Elder Wang's figure appeared, a terrifying heavenly broad creed palm descending from the heavens. The skies seemed to have become shorter in an instant. Tai exhaled and shouted. His right fist exerted force, and as he pushed Yang Nia back, he raised his left hand. His left hand bright as Vajra, blocked Elder Wang's heavenly broad creed palm with the momentum of supporting the heavens. As vast as the sky, the forceful and domineering palm energy pressed down continuously. However, Sure Tai was like a pillar that supported the heavens, unmoving and unwavering. The two palms collided. Sure Tai's eyes shone with a divine light, and with a low roar, his left hand continued to move upwards. He actually forcefully pushed up the lowered sky dome once more. When Elder Wang and Yang Nye saw this scene, they were also moved. One of Broad Creed Mountain's three supreme arts, the heavenly Broad Creed Palm, was actually not a match for the Vajra body of the eight extreme arts. It wasn't that the heavenly Broad Creed Palm had been defeated by the Vajra body, but that Sure Tai was stronger than Elder Wang. The sky was about to collapse, but when Sure Tai exerted his strength, the falling sky was lifted up again. What was even more terrifying was that he did not just lift them up. As his strength continued to rise, the sky actually showed signs of overturning in another direction. It was not the terrifying power of the heavenly Broad Creed Palm that overturned the heavens and the earth, but that Sure Tai wanted to overturn this very sky. The white formation heavenly altar around Elder Wang's body suddenly started to tilt, about to be flipped over by Sure Tai. From below, just at this moment, a black light flashed, like a strange black dragon that had suddenly appeared. It stabbed towards Sure Tai from a tricky angle. The power was condensed and completely focused on a single point, forming an incomparably terrifying destructive force. Its target was the old wound on Sure Tai's chest. Sure Tai's gaze was like lightning as he punched out with his right hand, once again deflecting Yang Nye's Hua Yen's saber. Retracting his left hand that was suppressing Elder Wang, his movements seeming slow, but accurately punching out, deflecting Sima Chue's sneak attack. The strange black dragon was hit in the neck by the stone, and it let out a cry of pain, as if its spine had been broken. After deflecting Sima Chue's spear with his left fist, Sure Tai spread his fingers, the movements of his hand becoming light and slow as it slowly moved. A golden ring of light appeared, its entire body like Vajra. Full and flawless, its center empty, as if able to contain all things. Sima Chue wanted to retract his spear and change his stance, but discovered that the black dragon formed of his martial true intent and spirit artifact was trapped by that golden ring of light, actually unable to be retracted. Sure Tai exerted force with his left hand. That black dragon, howling mournfully, unable to break free as it was unceasingly devoured and absorbed by the golden ring of light. The massive force drew Sima Chue's body towards Sure Tai involuntarily. Either he let go of his spirit artifact, or he was dragged over by Sure Tai. Just as Sima Chue was unable to stabilize his body, Elder Wang and Yang Nye attacked, once more dealing a blow to Sure Tai. As Yang Nye chopped out with his saber, the entire horizon turned purple, boundless strong gales surging together, enveloping the entire sky. As Yang Nye chopped out with his saber, the entire horizon turned purple, boundless strong gales surging together, covering the entire sky. As his saber descended, the purple sky seemed to transform into a saber light, chopping towards Sure Tai. Numerous black nightmare storms swept within the purple sky, appearing brutal and terrifying. Sure Tai instantly seemed to be situated within the great western desert. On the other side, Elder Wang's palms descended once more. Sure Tai's gaze was firm as a monolith, not wavering in the slightest. The golden heavenly altar merged completely with him, his entire person resembling a Vajra, infinite light emanating from within his body. The profound light divine armor on his body flickered, forcibly resisting Yang Nye's purple chi heavenly wave saber, his left hand not ceasing as it supported Sima Chue forward, before his right fist mightily descended, striking Sima Chue right in the chest. The black heavenly altar mightily shattered, fresh blood spurting madly from Sima Chue's mouth, circulating the stone metal Vajra body to the maximum, forcibly resisting Yang Nie's saber before his body tilted slightly, avoiding his vitals as he was struck by Elder Wang's palm once more. The heavenly broad Creed palm's vigorous, tyrannical, boundless majestic force caused Shi Tai's figure to shake, resembling a mountain collapsing. Blood leaked slightly from the corner of Shi Tai's mouth. Yang Nie roared furiously, "The Iron Lion is going to become a dead lion today." As the purple chi of the extreme western desert surged madly, the light tiger saber within his hands completely transformed into a hurricane. Countless terrifying gales that seemed able to cleave the heavens and split the earth streaked through the horizon, madly hacking towards Shi Tai, leaving behind numerous tragic wounds on the profound light divine armor and Shi Tai himself. There was no fear within Shi Tai's gaze, no wavering. However, there was something that had never appeared before. Berserk, rampaging, bloodthirsty. I'll bury all of you here, even if I have to use my own flesh, blood, and bones. A wild roar shook the 9 heavens, resembling an enraged lion madly roaring. Releasing Sima Chue's spear, Shi Tai crossed his fists, repelling Yang Nie's saber light before his figure abruptly spun. Striding forward, resembling a descended divinity, he arrived before Elder Wang. The image of Vajra on Shi Tai's body vanished, only his fists being incomparably bright. A fist descended, dispersing Elder Wang's heavenly broad Creed palm. Another fist descended, directly shattering Elder Wang's heavenly altar of talismans. Elder Wang stared wide-eyed. He had never seen such a Vajra body before. This was completely abandoning his defense, abandoning the essence of the Vajra body's attack and defense as one, concentrating all of his power on his fists. The Vajra body of the past, indestructible. The Vajra body of the present, invincible. Shi Tai completely disregarded himself, forcibly withstanding Yang Nie's full-powered saber with his profound light divine armor once more. The profound light divine armor was finally unable to bear the burden, shattering mightily. However, Shi Tai's fist descended once more, mightily striking Elder Wang's chest, causing this former longtime elder of Plaza Mountain's chest to directly collapse inwards, just as Shi Tai was about to turn and deal with Yang Nie. A streak of dark light appeared once more. The strange black dragon roared madly, mightily striking the old wound on Shi Tai's chest. Shi Tai spat out a mouthful of blood, his entire body penetrated by the spear. The scaly dragon king, Sima Chue's eyes turned yellow, a blood-red light shooting out of them as he stared fixedly at Shi Tai. Having always been plagued by devilish intent earlier, he had finally completely fallen to the dark side, making use of this to greatly alleviate the injuries that Shi Tai had caused earlier, thus delivering this fatal blow. However, meeting Shi Tai's gaze, he could not help but shudder. The wild lion roared once more, its destructive fists descending from above with the momentum of ripping the heavens apart, one left, one right, striking the chests of Sima Chue and Yang Nie. The 2 late essence talisman experts simultaneously spurted out blood, dyeing the sky red. To be continued. Chapter 299. Shi Tai punched out with both fists, heavily injuring Sima Chue, who had just recovered some of his vitality. Apart from Yang Nie, however, his 3 opponents had also become ruthless at this moment. With wild roars, they once again attacked Shi Tai, fighting to the death. As Yang Nie coldly shouted, purple light surged from his body, turning into a purple gale that pounced towards Shi Tai. Sima Chue gripped his spear tightly, blocking Shi Tai's figure as he charged down towards the ground below. Elder Wang also struggled to charge forward. "We definitely won't let you destroy Broad Creed Mountain." As Shi Tai roared, He blocked Elder Wang's iron palm with his left hand and punched out, directly blasting the head of this martial uncle who had fallen to the nine hells. However, his figure was entangled by Yang Nie's saber light. The sky above his head had completely turned purple. The earth beneath him was scorching hot, turning 1,000 miles of fertile soil into sand. Between the heavens and the earth, there was a violent black tornado sweeping up Shirtai's body and causing him to fall towards the ground that had already become a desert. Shirtai suddenly reached out, grabbed Yang Nie's right hand that was holding the saber, and dragged him down. Yang Nie did not dodge. He pushed his strength to the limit, and beams of purple light shot into the desert below. As the mournful radiance flickered, it turned into a series of purple runes that formed a ruthless formation. Then, boundless purple light soared into the sky like countless sharp blades, piercing into Shirtai's back. As if he could not feel the pain, Shirtai raised his right fist and punched towards Yang Nie. Yang Nie was caught by Shirtai's left hand and couldn't dodge. He could only watch as Shirtai's right fist landed on his chest. The destructive power was completely condensed into a single point. Shirtai's fist was like a peerless divine weapon as it punched through Yang Nie's body. Blood, flesh, organs, bones, everything was smashed to pieces. Yang Nie's eyes widened as he spat out a mouthful of blood, splattering all over Shirtai's face. Black Nightmare Mountain's final 9th level Martial Grandmaster, a late Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster, had died with everlasting regret. After killing Yang Nie with a single punch, Shirtai's figure was also struck by the spear in Sima Chue's hand, causing him to fall into the desert below. That long spear was like a nail, nailing Shirtai to the ground. Even with Yang Nie's death, the purple light array still played its final role. Rays of purple light flew up, like purple chains, wrapping around Shirtai's body and the long spear, imprisoning him in place. Of his 3 opponents, the only one still alive, Sima Chue, stood in midair, looking down at Shirtai lying on the ground below. At this moment, Shirtai's entire body was like a stone statue that was on the verge of shattering, dim, mottled, and dilapidated. Only his left fist was still flashing with a bright light. Sima Chue opened his mouth to speak, but first spat out a mouthful of blood. His injuries worsened, and his situation was extremely bleak. Even though he's injured, he can still kill 2 of them despite fighting 1 against 3. Sima Chue coughed nonstop, his gaze fixed on Shirtai, the one surnamed Shir. You live up to the name of the Iron Lion King. Shirtai's face was expressionless. He didn't say a word as he struggled to stand up. However, the chains of purple light bound him tightly. That black spear that had pierced through his body and nailed him to the ground, connected with the purple chains, erupted with even more ferocious power. It was fine if Shirtai did not move, but as soon as he tried to move, his body instantly suffered a blow. Sima Chue's gaze fell on Shirtai's left hand. If I want to kill you now, it would be as easy as flipping my hand. However, I have to get close to you. However, if I get close to you, I know that you still have the strength for a final blow. If I want to kill you, I am destined to accompany you in death. Sima Chue's face was ashen as he shook his head, raising his head to look at the distant mountain peak that towered into the clouds. Over there, what the hell are you all doing? I don't know, and am also not interested in knowing. However, I do know that what you all want to do, I'll make it impossible for you all to succeed. While coughing blood, Sima Chue laughed with difficulty. If I kill you, you have the ability to drag me down with you. If I don't kill you, I won't die. While you won't die either, I can ruin your plans. It might not even be your personal matter, but that of your entire Broad Creed Mountain. Ha 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 ha. The light in Shirtai's eyes surged madly as he grasped the black spear, but the black light and the purple light mightily struck his body, locking it in place, leaving him unable to move. Sima Chui laughed. Slowly grind it out. If you spend a bit more time, you can break the formation and pull out my dragon spear, but you might not be as fast as me. Laughing loudly, Sima Chui flew towards that lone peak. On the lone peak, Xue Fei stood at the center of the heaven character, his hands raised high towards the heavens, his palms flipped, as if holding up the heavens. Beside him, Ing Longtu knelt on one knee, both hands pressing down on the heaven character. The golden hurricane surrounded the two, growing stronger and stronger, completely enveloping the entire lone peak, sweeping the surrounding spiritual chi of the heavens and earth within. As the two worked hard, the heaven-shocking, earth-shaking great battle in the distance took place. Xue Fei and Ing Longtu both gazed nervously in that direction. Suddenly, after an intense collision, the battle seemed to have calmed. Following that, a powerful aura approached Xue Fei and Ing Longtu. As it neared, Xue Fei's heart suddenly sunk to the very bottom because he could tell that it was not the aura of his master Shi Tai's fist intent. Indeed, the figure of the scaly dragon king, Sima Chui, appeared before Xue Fei and Ing Longtu, looking at the golden hurricane that enveloped the mountain peak. Appraising it for a moment, Sima Chui chuckled. He did not have a spear in hand, but punching out, his true essence naturally transformed into a black, scaly dragon, resembling an indestructible spear as it pierced towards the mountain peak. As the scaly dragon left the sea, black light flickered. The violent, evil roar of a dragon intermingled with the sound of the hurricane. The black, scaly dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws, madly tearing at the golden hurricane. Even though he was heavily injured, close to death, Sima Chui's strength was still far from what the likes of Zhu Qian could compare to. Beneath the attacks of the scaly dragon manifested from his true martial spirit, the golden hurricane instantly became in imminent danger. The establishment of the heaven character had also reached the final juncture at this moment. In the air above the lone peak, complex, profound spirit patterns appeared, looking like a greatly shrunken version of broad Creed Mountain's Guardian Grand Formation. The spirit patterns and the heaven character merged before streams of chi expanded outwards in all directions. Sima Chui gave a low roar, a violent force interfering with the golden hurricane, interfering with the heaven character, causing the circulation of the heaven character to slow. The two sides momentarily fell into a stalemate. Sima Chui laughed savagely, also beginning to exert his full strength, the golden hurricane gradually being ripped apart by his power. His fist began approaching the lone peak, but before it had even arrived, the mountain peak already began to shake intensely, as though it was about to collapse. With the collapse of the lone peak, the heaven character would similarly collapse. At the top of the mountain, Xue Fei and Ing Longtu desperately stabilized the heaven character, entangling with Sima Chui. In the distance, within the great desert, Shi Tai was expressionless as he gripped the black spear that had pierced through his body. Creak, creak, bit by bit, Shi Tai pulled that black spear that had pierced through his body outwards. Purple light and black light flickered as they intersected. Shi Tai's skin and flesh split open. The body of a man who had once been made of iron was currently trembling unceasingly. Only his hands were stable as a monolith. To be continued. Chapter 300. Shi Tai's hands exerted strength as he slowly pulled out the high-grade spirit weapon, the dragon spear, that was nailing him to the ground. Every time the dragon spear was pulled out an inch, Shi Tai's body would have to endure tremendous pain. The spear connected with the array on the ground and fused into one, turning into the shackles of the lion. These shackles were embedded into his flesh, and every attempt to remove them would cause Shi Tai's own flesh to be mangled. Shi Tai's expression did not change in the slightest as he used all his strength to pull out the spear. However, just as Sima Chui had said, This was too slow after breaking free. Although Shurtai still had the strength to fight again, Xue Fei, Yinglong too, and the others could not wait any longer. Beneath the lone peak, Sima Chue's strength grew stronger and stronger, even beginning to penetrate through the golden hurricane, striking towards Xue Fei and Yinglong too at the top of the mountain. Streaks of black dragon-like energy fiercely pounced towards the Tian talisman and Xue Fei on the mountaintop. The difference in their cultivation bases was too great. Even though Sima Chue was heavily injured, he was still not someone he could withstand. Xue Fei was well aware of this, but he showed no fear on his face as he resolutely shielded Yinglong Tu behind him. The only thing that worried Xue Fei was that the mountain under his feet was shaking, and the Tian talisman was in danger. With the heaven, earth, and human tripartite laws hard to establish, he would be unable to wrest back control over the clear Qi grand formation from Xian Dongping's hands. In the outside world, powerful enemies like the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall were about to pounce over. Broad Creed Mountain was in danger. Yinglong Tu asked blankly, "Senior apprentice brother, where's Master?" Before he finished speaking, a majestic lion roar sounded in the distance. At the foot of the mountain, Sima Chue looked back in shock, his gaze piercing through space to land on that desert. Shurtai, who had been nailed to the ground by the Yin Dragon Spear, gripped the shaft of the Yin Dragon Spear with his right hand and raised his left high up. Shurtai's left hand clenched into a fist. Resplendent light condensed and illuminated the surroundings. In the next instant, Shurtai's left fist stirred up a destructive power and smashed into the shaft of the Yin Dragon Spear. With a sound like muffled thunder, the high-grade spirit artifact, the Yin Dragon Spear, was forcefully broken by Shurtai. The Yin Dragon Spear was broken, and the purple chains and black tornadoes around it were no longer able to bind Shurtai's body. But at this moment, the berserk power also exploded and shook Shurtai. Shurtai remained silent, his body rising upwards. Creak, creak, an ear-piercing sound of friction came from the broken spear shaft, and his body once again, causing one's heart to tremble. Sima Chue looked at Shurtai in disbelief. "You're crazy! This way, you're dead for sure." With Shurtai as the center, the wind blew across the surrounding desert. Amidst the billowing dust, Shurtai stood up once again. It was like a statue of a deity that would never fall. Even if it was broken, even if it was crooked, it would still stand tall in the end. Grasping the shaft of the Yin Dragon Spear, Shurtai glared fiercely at Sima Chue. The upper half of the shaft of the Yin Dragon Spear transformed into a bolt of black lightning, shooting wildly towards Sima Chue. Sima Chue wanted to dodge, but discovered that even as he wrestled with the Tian character and the golden tornado, he was also sucked in by the Tian character and the golden tornado. Unable to move, Sima Chue's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He could only extend a hand in front of him to block the incoming black light. Boom! An astonishing brilliance erupted from the black light. It was as hard as diamond and as resplendent as a shooting star. Sima Chue's arm was directly shattered, followed by his body, shattering, shattering, shattering again, mightily exploding. The last of the three late Essence Talisman Martial Grandmasters, the Scaly Dragon King, Sima Chue, was slain on the spot by the Iron Lion King Shurtai. Losing Sima Chue's restraint, the Golden Tornado mightily regained its normal form, its power unleashed to the maximum. The Tian character completely merged with the spirit patterns in the air above the lone peak, countless formless streams of Qi extending outwards, merging with broad Creed Mountain's clear Qi grand formation. Of the three positions of heaven, earth, and human, the final heaven position was finally established. Seeing that the Tian character had finally been completely established, Xue Fei had no time to think as he dashed down the mountain towards Shurtai, Inglongtu following closely behind him. In the distant desert, on the great earth, a figure stood erect, resembling a modeled statue. The statue's entire body was riddled with cracks, riddled with scars, mottled and dilapidated, as though it had experienced innumerable storms. However, it still stood there, with an unyielding aura, resembling a pillar that held up the heavens. A sorrowful look appeared on Xue Fei's face as he knelt before this figure, silent and speechless. Shi Tai opened his eyes, raising his head with difficulty to look towards the sky. Streak after streak of light shot behind him in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain. Shi Tai wanted to swivel his head to look in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain, but he was already unable to do so. However, a few scenes still surfaced before his eyes, scenes that existed in the depths of his memories, engraved into his soul, bringing him along through the long passage of time. His parents had died early, and he had struggled to live on. One day, a middle-aged man had appeared before him, smiling as he asked if he was willing to learn martial arts from him. That was his master, who was currently in secluded cultivation at Broad Creed Mountain's back mountain, similarly doing his utmost for Broad Creed Mountain, Yuan Zhengfeng. At that time, his master had been in the prime of his life, not appearing old at all, just like him before. As the scenes changed, he had been focused on his martial arts. His master had brought a child back to the mountain, just like how he had brought him back that year. That child was still young, but his gaze was calm, mature like an adult's. That was his second junior apprentice brother Fang Juan, who was currently suppressing the devilish domain grand formation at the back mountain, preventing the 9 underworlds from descending into this world. After that, his master had continuously brought back some children, all of them becoming his junior apprentice brothers. Sometimes he would even have to pass on his skills on behalf of his master. Amongst them, there was a little girl, the daughter of a senior apprentice uncle, who had been pampered to the point of being lawless and out of control, causing even his master to have a headache over her afterwards. Only when he had a stern expression on his face would the girl be afraid, sticking out her tongue, timidly quieting down. That was junior apprentice sister Fu. Finally, when he had already come of age, his name having spread far and wide, his master, who had already appeared old, had brought back a youth, saying that this was his junior apprentice brother, his final disciple. At a young age, he had already shown off his abilities, a youth who was full of vigor and ambition. That was Yan Di, who was currently in a life-and-death battle with Yuan Tian and Xian Dongping within the Clear Qi Grand Formation. Other than that, there were also many of his fellow disciples, some still around, some already no longer around. While the elderly had passed away, new youths had entered the clan, like his beloved disciples Xue Fei and Inglongtu before him. Similarly, the future of Broad Creed Mountain, Yan Zhaoge, Feng Yunsheng, Xikong Qing, and the others, the scenes changed unceasingly, finally coming to a halt. His wife had been injured during her pregnancy, persevering in giving birth to his child, but not long after, she had passed away. The only thing that made him feel gratified was that his child had grown up day by day, from a lively boy to an intelligent youth, finally growing into a tall youth, becoming the pride of his life. Afterwards, his son had also married and had children. Before that, he had never thought that there would also be a time when he would play with his grandson, enjoying the happiness of a family, the happiest time of his life. His daughter-in-law, Ing Yuzhen, carried her grandson Shi Jun, snuggling up to Shi Songtao's side, the family of 3 smiling as they looked over. Little Shi Jun extended his chubby little hands towards him. The scenes within Shi Tai's mind finally came to a halt here. In the distance, on the lone mountain where the heaven character was, a golden hurricane gathered the spiritual qi of the surrounding area, connecting with the clear qi grand formation. Within the air, numerous spirit patterns lit up, the clear qi grand formation shaking once more. This meant that his position had already been established. The three intersected, the clear Qi grand formation changing once more. Shirtai smiled slightly, slowly closing his eyes. To be continued. Chapter 301. Within the city where the human character was, Yen Zhaoge stood on the rune, his eyes closed. Within the darkness of space, within the white light formation, two specks of golden light already flickered together with Yen Zhaoge's current position. Only the light that represented the heavenly seat had yet to light up. Yen Zhaoge waited patiently, but now his heart suddenly jolted. Opening his eyes, Yen Zhaoge lowered his head, seeing that on the back of his left hand, the devilish mark that had originally been about to completely dissipate had suddenly grown much heavier. Eldest apprentice uncle. Yen Zhaoge's heart thumped. The devilish mark growing heavier was not because of the 9 underworlds, but because something had happened to Shirtai, who had sealed the 9 underworlds together with him. Now, Yen Zhaoge felt the clear Qi grand formation circulate mightily. Within his consciousness, within the white light formation, a third speck of light finally lit up. The heavenly seat had finally been established. Heaven, earth, and human returned to their positions, working together on the clear Qi grand formation. The clear Qi grand formation shook intensely. With the sky above Broad Creed Mountain as their center, a great amount of spirit patterns flickered and lit up, extending and expanding unceasingly in all directions. The heavens and the earth seemed to turn illusory once more, resembling a painting as it distorted violently. Yen Zhaoge forcibly suppressed the worry in his heart, his palms coming together before abruptly separating, one upwards and one downwards, striking out simultaneously. One palm towards the heavens, one towards the earth, with Yen Zhaoge as the crux. The spiritual Qi flow of the clear Qi grand formation abruptly changed directions. Still battling with Yen Di in the foreign dimension above Broad Creed Mountain, Xian Dongping immediately felt that something was wrong. Within his eyes and the palms of his hands, a total of 4 runes shattered at the same time. However hard Xian Dongping tried, the control over the clear Qi grand formation had left him at this moment. Within the city, Yen Zhaoge let out a long roar, his palms coming together once more after having been separated. Beneath the effects of the heaven, earth, and human runes, the clear Qi grand formation within the sky instantly grew calm, returning to normal. Yen Zhaoge immediately reinforced the power of the clear Qi grand formation where the heaven character was, but was unable to succeed. In order to gather the power of the formation and control it, one either had to be proficient in the art of formations or have a high enough cultivation. Neither Xue Fei nor Ing Long Tu fulfilled this condition. Where the heaven character was, only Shirtai could bear it. But now he was unable to increase the power of the array. Yen Zhaoge pressed his lips tightly together. Something really happened to eldest apprentice uncle. Who was shocked when he heard this? Young master, you mean Elder Shi? Yen Zhaoge closed his eyes, not speaking. His clasped palms separated once more, one hand clenching into a fist, the other extending his index finger, tapping towards his left pupil. Within his left eye, profound and complicated spirit patterns instantly surfaced, coming together to form a clear Qi grand formation that seemed to have been shrunk countless times. Clenching his fist tightly, Yen Zhaoge punched forward, his fist intent surging. The clear Qi grand formation within his eyes instantly transformed into light, completely entering the depths of his eyes. Yen Zhaoge closed his eyes once more. After standing silently for a moment, he opened them again, a dazzling white light erupting from his left eye. Within the white light, 3 golden specks of light shone brilliantly. Rise. Grabbing Yen Zhaoge strode forward. Within the sky, the spirit patterns of the clear Qi grand formation lit up, resembling a great Tao that connected to the heavens, guiding Yen Zhaoge as he flew, his speed completely not inferior to peak martial grandmaster experts. Yen Zhaoga traversed the spirit patterns, resembling traversing space as he speedily streaked across the horizon, hurrying towards the lone peak where the heaven character was located. A mountain peak that towered into the clouds appeared within his field of vision. As his gaze swept over it, Yen Zhaoga discovered that in the distance, a vast desert had suddenly appeared on the great earth. In the center of the desert, there was a figure standing upright. As Yen Zhaoga brought Ahu along, he saw Su Fei and Ing Tu both kneeling before that figure that resembled a bronze statue. Looking at that figure, Yen Zhaoga closed his eyes, raising his head, unable to speak. That resolute and unyielding, strict and impartial first seat of Broad Creed Mountain's disciplinary hall. The Iron Lion King, who had no desire for power and authority and was brave enough to take the lead. That taciturn eldest apprentice uncle, who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, for Broad Creed Mountain. He had battled to the very last moment, spilling his last drop of blood, leaving everyone behind. Let us quickly return to reinforce the clan. Su Fei stood up, the eyes of that resolute man reddening as his trembling voice gradually grew steady. The clear Qi Grand Formation has finally been wrested back, but we still cannot relax. We must completely defeat the incoming enemy. Saying thus, Su Fei's gaze dimmed a little, a pity that Master cannot personally see this scene. Yen Zhaoga opened his eyes. He can. He swiveled his head to look at Su Fei. Where is the shadow shrinking pouch that eldest apprentice uncle obtained from senior apprentice brother, Shi Songtao? Su Fei's gaze lit up, keeping Shi Tai's belongings as he took out the shadow shrinking pouch. After opening it, there were 3 transparent ice coffins within, 2 of which contained the bodies of Ing Yuzhen and Shi Jun. Yen Zhaoga received the empty ice coffin from Su Fei's hands. Opening its lid, Su Fei lifted Shi Tai's body that was on the verge of shattering, placing it within the ice coffin. Yen Zhaoga closed the coffin's lid, pursing his lips tightly as he looked at Shi Tai's corpse within the transparent ice coffin. Looking at his young master, Ahu could only feel as though he was facing a volcano that might erupt at any moment. Yen Zhaoga raised his hand, shrugging as he placed the ice coffin on his shoulder. Let's return to Broad Creed Mountain, Yen Zhaoga said quietly. He punched forward, a spirit pattern descending from the clear Qi Grand Formation, resembling a path. Carrying the ice coffin, Yen Zhaoga strode forward. The trio followed behind him, heading towards Broad Creed Mountain. At this moment, the great battle on Broad Creed Mountain had still yet to end, the 2 sides still locked in a fierce battle. The clear Qi Grand Formation had changed once more, causing everyone to be a little confused as they appeared hesitant. But not long after, radiance flickered in the distant sky as a path extended from the horizon all the way to Broad Creed Mountain. Gazing over, a person strode forward, carrying a transparent ice coffin on his shoulder as he walked towards Broad Creed Mountain. The person carrying the coffin was the most outstanding genius of Broad Creed Mountain's younger generation, Yen Zhaoga. Within the ice coffin lay a person peacefully. The Iron Lion King, Shi Tai. The spirit patterns of the clear Qi Grand Formation flickered, a mournful wail seemingly resounding between the heavens and the earth. Now, a person on Broad Creed Mountain roared furiously, Shi Tai, Yen Zhaoga. It was Elder Lu who had previously schemed to direct the power of the devilish domain Grand Formation in the Sand region to the South Heaven region, allowing the 9 underworlds to descend. With the heaven-sealing gorge broken, he and Elder Wang had escaped together. Seeing Yen Zhaoga and Shi Tai at this moment, it was like seeing enemies, their eyes blazing with hatred. Shi Tai, you're dead? Good death. Looking at the ice coffin, Elder Lu laughed loudly. Carrying the ice coffin on his right shoulder, Yen Zhaoga raised his head towards the sky. Eldest apprentice uncle, look at us. Saying thus, he chopped out with his left palm. A boom resounded as the clear Qi Grand formation above his head circulated, its power merging with Yen Zhaoge's heavenly broad creed palm, transforming into a massive heaven-obscuring hand, which descended. Elder Lu blocked with his palm. Little thief! All his struggles were futile as the flying spirit talisman shattered. The sea of flames swept up by the Tishita palm instantly extinguished. Elder Lu was directly slammed into the ground by the heavenly broad creed palm of the clear Qi Grand formation. Not even his corpse remained. Yen Zhaoge gazed at all the demons and monsters of Broad Creed Mountain, his gaze like fire. All of you become the paving of my eldest apprentice uncle's coffin. Chapter 3:02. Yen Zhaoge carried the ice coffin on his shoulder, advancing forward. Above his head, the clear Qi Grand formation circulated mightily, descending a boundless, mighty force which bolstered Yen Zhaoge's body. Yen Zhaoge brought his fingers together, forming a saber with his palm as he chopped forward. As the radiance flickered, numerous spirit talismans gathered to form a massive talisman formation, resembling a miniature clear Qi Grand formation. The grand array became a blade edge, sweeping forward, chopping large numbers of decimating abyss martial artists at the waist. A crack appeared in the foreign space above, and a terrifying torrent of destruction poured out from within. Raising his head to look towards the horizon, Yen Zhaoge raised his left hand, spreading his fingers, his palm facing the air above Broad Creed Mountain's peak. The next moment, Yen Zhaoge clenched his fingers into a fist. Accompanied by his action of clenching his fist, the clear Qi Grand formation in the sky rumbled as it circulated, numerous spirit patterns transforming into a mist of light, traversing through the horizon. Haze of light interweaved, forming a net, continuously covering that foreign space. The radiance gradually faded, but the foreign space also stabilized once more. The space that had been violently distorting and shaking gradually calmed down, becoming transparent and formless once more, making it difficult for others to detect. Yen Zhaoge lowered his head once more, looking coldly at the decimating abyss martial practitioners of Broad Creed Mountain. He raised his left hand and smashed it down heavily. As the clear Qi Grand formation in the air circulated, rays of white light descended one after another, streaking across the sky like lightning, yet also like heavenly punishment. One decimating abyss martial practitioner after another, under the terrifying and peerless bombardment of the clear Qi Grand formation, died without a place to be buried. Yen Zhaoge did not cease in his footsteps as he carried the ice coffin along with Su Fei and Yinglong Tu, treading on the great path paved with spirit patterns as they arrived before the clan. The group of people supported the spirit and went to the main peak, Heaven Rising Peak. As Yen Zhaoge's palm descended, another 2 insulation martial grandmasters were smashed into smithereens, placing the ice coffin containing Shi Tai's corpse on the ground of the mountain peak. Yen Zhaoge looked at Shi Tai's face, sucking in a deep breath as he rose upwards. Bolstered by the power of the clear Qi Grand formation, Yen Zhaoge successfully broke through the obstruction of space, entering the foreign dimension. Within the foreign dimension, Yen Di, Yuan Tian, and Xian Dongping had experienced a fierce battle, their expressions currently not looking too good, all 3 of them bearing injuries. Yen Zhaoge stared at that former senior of his clan, Xian, east, level. Extending a hand forward, Yen Zhaoge's heavenly broad creed palm descended. A large number of flickering runes appeared on the ground around the foreign dimension, and then they also manifested into giant palms. The movements of this palm were completely synchronized with Yen Zhaoge's, the massive heaven-obscuring hand mightily pressing down towards Xian Dongping. At that moment, it was as if the world in this foreign dimension had truly been flipped upside down. As Yen Zhaoge's figure appeared within the foreign dimension, Xian Dongping instantly let out a long sigh towards the heavens. His gaze fell on Yen Zhaoge's left eye. as he saw that within Yan Zhaoga's left pupil was reflected white light, within which 3 spots of golden light flickered. Xian Dongping said, "It was this unique technique that allowed you to recapture the clear qi grand array." He too raised his palm, similarly striking out with the heavenly broad creed palm. The 2 palms collided, and the void trembled. The boundary between heaven and earth blurred, as if it was constantly flipping. Even as Yan Zhaoga sent a palm towards Xian Dongping, he punched out with his other hand, his target being his father, Yan Di. Accompanied by this punch of Yan Zhaoga's, the clear qi grand array borrowed the boundless majestic power of the heavens and the earth, surging into Yan Di's body in great amounts. Yan Di's gaze shot out with divine light, the aura of the clear qi robe on his body also surging. Streams of clear qi dispersed into the surroundings, gradually re-establishing their connection with the clear qi grand array within the foreign dimension. Yan Di brandished his saber, an incomparably ferocious saber intent sweeping towards the devil Saint Yuan Tian. Father and son exerted force together. Staring at Xian Dongping, Yan Zhaoga let out an enraged roar, resembling the roar of a dragon and the roar of a tiger. A terrifying volcano, at this moment completely erupted. Amidst Yan Zhaoga's long roar, the momentum of the heavenly broad creed palm abruptly changed, exchanging blows with him. Xian Dongping felt it the most directly. That was no longer a power that overturned the heavens and the earth, but rather that the heavens and the earth no longer existed. The world seemed to have returned to before the heavens and the earth had opened, everything still in a state of chaos. No yin, no yang, no before, no after, no beginning, no end, no movement, no stability. The next moment, the chaos mightily exploded. It was as if all things had been subsumed into chaos. Then the chaos was extinguished, the universe opening once more. In an instant, a different change occurred in the entire clear qi grand array, as if it was reenacting the opening of the heavens and splitting the earth. This incomparably majestic force domineeringly broke through Xian Dongping's heavenly broad creed palm. Xian Dongping was taken aback, the sword light in his other hand flickering as a limitless heavenly sword pierced through the heavens and the earth, chopping towards Yan Zhaoga. Yan Zhaoga exhaled and roared, extending his hands before clapping together towards the center. Within the foreign dimension, countless flickering spirit patterns transformed into 2 massive palms, synchronizing with Yan Zhaoga's movements, as they also clapped towards the center, instantly trapping Xian Dongping's sword light between the 2 palms. Yan Zhaoga looked coldly at Xian Dongping, that terrifying concept that resembled an explosion of chaos appearing once more. The violent, direct force shattered Xian Dongping's limitless heavenly sword once more. Xian Dongping's brows knit tightly as he retreated, no longer forcibly resisting Yan Zhaoga and the clear qi grand array, instead wanting to join up with the devil Saint Yuan Tian. There, Yuan Tian was also currently being forced into retreat by Yan Di's saber. Yan Zhaoga sucked in a deep breath, pushing forward with his palms horizontally, infinite, frenzied tides, with a momentum that surged to the heavens, pressured down towards Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian. At the same time, Yan Di's saber swept through the air, splitting the heavens and the earth, shattering space itself as it also attacked towards Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian. Palm intent and saber intent combined. Frenzied tides that surged to the heavens directly drowned Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian. The majestic sword light and the ethereal qi of impermanence were extinguished and shattered on a large scale. Yan Zhaoga's palm descended, the clear qi grand array circulating unceasingly, the shocking explosive force of the great explosion of chaos domineeringly shattering one of Xian Dongping's arms. On the other side, Yan Di's vicious saber shattered the spirit artifact whip in Yuan Tian's hands. a bloody wound also appearing between his chest and abdomen. If not for him retreating in time, his abdomen would have been directly split open. Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian hurriedly retreated. Yan Zhaoga's palm stance changed, his hands coming together, the entire foreign dimension pressuring towards the two. At this moment, the foreign dimension actually appeared to collapse, a boundless, majestic force also pressuring down on Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian even as it imprisoned them. Yan Di raised his saber. The black and yellow specks of light on the clear qi robe attaching themselves to the heavenly dragon saber in large amounts, streams of clear qi enveloping the saber's body. A ferocious saber descended, pressuring Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian to the point that they were unable to move, only able to join hands to deal with it. The Xian Dongping, with a weaker cultivation base, was already beginning to be injured by the sharp saber intent. Yan Zhaoga's clasped hands abruptly came together. The clear qi grand array suddenly circulated in reverse. Amidst the rapid changes, a shocking force was born, distorting as though it could forcibly rip a corner of the eight extremities world apart. Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian both let out tragic groans. The wound on Yuan Tian's chest abruptly expanded in all directions, virtually wanting to tear him apart into pieces. The body of a martial saint, how sturdy, how powerful. However, at this moment, it was on the verge of shattering. On the other side, Xian Dongping was in an even worse state, the limitless heavenly avatar completely shattered, a rain of blood erupting from his entire body. His entire person seemed about to be crushed into a pile of meat paste. Resolute looks flashed within the gazes of Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian. Amidst low roars, a great amount of black devilish qi surged from within their bodies. Their pupils both began to turn dark yellow, a blood-red light simultaneously shooting out from within. Devil! Yan Zhaoga laughed savagely, his killing intent surging to the heavens. I'll let you be a good devil. Opening his shadow-shrinking pouch, a bow and 3 arrows fell into Yan Zhaoga's hands. To be continued. Chapter 303. Compared to Xian Dongping, the devilish intent in Yuan Tian's heart was actually not as strong. However, at this moment, the threat of death had caused his desire to live to reach an extreme. The martial saint realm allowed him to move unhindered throughout his life. As long as he did not take the initiative to trample on the mountain gates of the Holy Land level sects, few people would be able to do anything to him. But now, this was the first time in Yuan Tian's life that he had ever set foot in a Holy Land level sects mountain gate. This place could very well become his burial ground. At this moment, Yuan Tian clearly felt the threat of death looming over him. The situation forced him to make a choice: falling to the dark side, obtaining the hope of rebirth, or dying in broad Creed Mountain. Yuan Tian chose the former. Xian Dongping was also the same as him. The current Xian Dongping was abnormally calm, even vaguely having the feeling of a wanderer returning home, quietly welcoming this moment. Yan Zhaoga's voice was low. Father, eldest apprentice uncle has perished. Yan Di's gaze emitted a cold light as the fingers of his right hand that held the heavenly dragon's saber abruptly tightened. When Yuan Tian and Xian Dongping heard this, there was no joy on their faces. Instead, they became even more vigilant. Gazing at Yan Zhaoga, Xian Dongping slowly shook his head. There is no meaning in saying all this now. However, this old man's greatest mistake was not in underestimating your father, Yan Di, but in not taking care of you beforehand. Yan Zhaoga's gaze was cold as he met Xian Dongping's gaze, saying in an indifferent tone, "From how I see it, if I could have confirmed long ago that you were the decimating Abyss Lord, I would have long since killed you." Xian Dongping let out a long sigh. There's no point in saying more. He stared at Yan Zhaoga. "I'm afraid that I won't be able to make it today." This old man's injuries are too severe, and falling to the dark side can only barely recover from them. There is no possibility of advancing any further. I've always hoped to take the step of falling to the dark side and successfully enter the saint realm, but I've always been a little short. Otherwise, if I could transcend mortality and enter sainthood today, I'd like to see if there's a chance to make up for my previous mistake. A longbow appeared in Yen Zhaoga's hands, as well as 3 jet-black arrows that flickered with a faint golden light. "Old mongrel, just die quietly," Yen Zhaoga said coldly. As he said this, Yen Zhaoga had already raised the high-speed bow within his hands. With his current cultivation, he was still unable to fully activate the power within this mid-grade spirit artifact. But it was enough. Yen Zhaoga knocked 2 jet-black arrows on the bowstring at the same time before pulling the bow back, resembling hugging the full moon. The bowstring sunk deep into the flesh of his fingers. The 2 arrowheads seemed to be aimed at the empty space around Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian. In this world, archery was also a type of martial Dao. The path of archery, like spear, sword, and saber, was unique. However, this Dao was even more difficult to cultivate. It was far more difficult to achieve anything than other martial Daos. At the same time, talent was even more important. Yen Zhaoga's archery was still SOSO, having only recently begun to train in it. However, on such an occasion, it would be difficult for him to miss. The clear Qi Grand Formation circulated, forming a powerful restrictive force, trapping Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian where they were. Yen Di's saber intent descended even more viciously, as the 2 of them could only defend against it in a pathetic fashion, no longer having the leisure to pay attention to anything else. While they had fallen to the dark side, with their earlier injuries being too severe, they were currently even more unable to stand against Yen Zhaoga and Yen Di. However, after falling to the dark side, Xian Dongping's expression instead grew much calmer. Looking at Yen Zhaoga and Yen Di, he said mildly, "This time, it was this old man's own mistake. On one hand, I did not get rid of you, Yen Zhaoga. On the other, I underestimated your father. Dying here today, next time, will decide victory and defeat." Xian Dongping looked at Yen Zhaoga. "Young man, you seem to be very familiar with the 9 underworld's evil devils. This old man heard about the process of you interrogating junior apprentice brother Lu. You said that with his cultivation base, even if he fell to the dark side, he would still be unable to achieve the body of a true devil reborn. Since you understand it so well, you should also know that with this old man's cultivation base, while I have yet to enter the martial saint realm, I still have a chance." Xian Dongping swiveled his head to glance at Yuan Tian. "And the devil saint will definitely be able to achieve the body of a true devil reborn." Yen Zhaoga pointed his arrows at the 2 of them, his gaze cold. Xian Dongping sighed. "Emotionally, even martial saints have a limit to their lifespan. When the time comes, no one can escape it. Eternal life, which countless people can only dream of but are unable to attain, to this old man, I actually did not feel that it was all that pressing in the past. This old man's lifelong wish is also not like that of senior apprentice brother Wang and junior apprentice brother Lu. Living an ignoble, mediocre life is also meaningless." Xian Dongping said. "However, today I have experienced some of its benefits. This old man still has regrets, not wanting to die so early. If I can be reborn from the 9 underworlds, I will fight with Yuan Zhengfeng and you father and son once more." Yen Zhaoga was not in the mood to listen to Xian Dongping's words. Other than controlling the clear Qi Grand Formation and trapping Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian where they were, his attention was currently focused on the bow and arrows in his hands. Under the combined attacks of Yen Zhaoga, wielding the clear Qi Grand Formation, and Yen Di's saber intent, the 2 were finally unable to hold on any longer. Xian Dongping's body, was completely shattered by the clear Qi Grand Formation. Yuan Tian was beheaded by Yen Di with a single saber. While the two were dead, streams of black Qi circulated, dissipating into the air. They did not remain within the air of the eight extremities world, instead seeming to want to pass through the boundaries of dimensions, heading to an indescribable place. The black Qi was illusory, unable to withstand force. Even Yen Di's tyrannical saber intent and the power of the clear Qi Grand Formation were unable to touch it. The two seemed to exist in two different worlds. The silhouettes of Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian appeared amidst the black Qi, the former calm, the latter resentful and furious. Xian Dongping opened his mouth to speak, but no sound emanated from it. However, from the shape of his mouth, it could be roughly made out that what he was saying was, "Until we meet again." Seeing this scene, Yen Di knit his brows tightly, anger appearing on his face. Xian Dongping, you transcending mortality, Yuan Tian entering sainthood, the two of you falling completely to the dark side. Whether or not you can be reborn from the 9 underworlds, I am clear on that. Yen Zhaoge finally shifted his gaze from the bow and arrows in his hands to Xian Dongping. His current expression resembled the descent of calamitous clouds, cold and gloomy. However, his eyes seemed to be blazing with great flames that surged to the heavens. However, you are not clear on what you are facing. Yen Zhaoge enunciated each word very clearly. Bao, named high speed, a mid-grade spirit-grade artifact. It is not important and can be ignored. Arrow, named devil shattering. Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian were stunned. Having said thus, Yen Zhaoge released his fingers. A golden light flickered, and the black arrow suddenly vanished. The previous moment, on the bowstring of high speed. The next moment, it struck that black Qi, struck Xian Dongping's and Yuan Tian's chests. Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian lowered their heads, looking blankly at the small hole that had broken through on their chests. Then, the small hole expanded unceasingly, becoming a large hole. The large hole continued expanding. A hole appeared at the center of their bodies, the hole expanding unceasingly outwards, completely empty. The area of the hole grew larger and larger, but the bodies of the two gradually disappeared, as though they had been devoured from within by the hole in their bodies. At the end, their bodies were completely extinguished, turning into nothingness. Even the black Qi that had enveloped them seemed to have been purified. Xian Dongping looked at Yen Zhaoge in disbelief. Meeting his gaze, Yen Zhaoge said indifferently, "You want eternal life? I will send you to eternal rest." To be continued. Chapter 304. The decimating abyss was created by Xian Dongping in recent years. The demons of the netherworld had existed since ancient times. They had existed before the Great Calamity. In the era before the advent of the Great Calamity, humans had come into contact with the 9 underworld's evil devils. Some had fallen to the dark side, while others had been exterminated. Some of the techniques that had been born from this had mostly been lost in the current 8 extremities world after the Great Calamity, few people knowing about them. The devil-shattering arrow was one of them. Shatter Devil, as the name implied, was the life force of Shatter Devils. Demons could not be killed and could not be destroyed. After being destroyed, they would be reborn in the depths of the 9 underworlds. However, the demon-shattering arrow forcefully cut off this process and sent the demon into eternal slumber. 9 levels of the martial Grandmaster realm, late Essence Talisman stage experts who fell to the dark side were still not true 9 underworld evil devils. It might be more appropriate to call it a human devil. On the other hand, a transcendent great grandmaster could be reborn after death. there was a certain probability that they would turn into a real demon of the netherworld and enjoy the ability to be reborn after death. If a martial saint fell to the dark side, he would definitely be reborn in the 9 underworlds. Yan Zhaoga had prepared the devil-shattering arrow precisely for this moment. Xian Dongping looked at the constantly expanding hole in his chest, watching as this hole expanded outwards, swirling around his body, swallowing him from the inside out. He raised his head to look at Yan Zhaoga. Yan Zhaoga's expression was cold, his gaze like fire. Do you think that fallen devils are omnipotent? Xian Dongping let out a long sigh towards the heavens, not making any sound at all. One could only barely make out the contents of his words from the shape of his mouth. Indeed, not getting rid of you first was an even greater mistake than underestimating Yan Di at the side. Yuan Tian's resentful expression gradually disappeared, and his face was filled with disappointment. He was not someone from the decimating abyss, and Xian Dongping had no way of controlling and ordering him around. But he was attracted by the 9 underworlds and had a request in his heart, so he hit it off well with Xian Dongping. He had originally thought that with Yuan Zhengfeng in secluded cultivation in his attempt to break through to the martial saint realm, with Xian Dongping acting as a spy to break the clear qi grand formation, his only opponent would be the sacred artifact, the clear qi robe. In the outside world, Jade Sea City and Turbid Wave Pavilion had to deal with the flame devils of the East Sea. The Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall would also most likely make use of this chance to make a move against Broad Creed Mountain, at the same time restricting Broad Creed Mountain's other ally, Infinite Boundless Mountain. He had the right time, the right place, and the right people. Even if something unexpected happened, he would not be able to succeed. As a martial saint, he would at least be able to retreat unscathed. If he succeeded, he would get what he wanted. If he failed, he wouldn't lose anything in the worst-case scenario. These were Yuan Tian's true thoughts. On one hand, it was out of consideration for the situation. On the other hand, it was also because of his self-confidence as a saint realm expert. Even when Yan Zhaoga and Yan Di had unexpectedly been directly shifted from the ancestral manor of the Yan family in Yunjin County to Broad Creed Mountain, trapped within the clear qi grand formation, Yuan Tian had still thought this way. But later, he found that he was wrong. Broad Creed Mountain was his burial ground. The last martial saint to die here was the last mountain master of Black Nightmare Mountain. Now it was Yuan Tian's turn. Yuan Tian did not feel any intense regret. He had braved many storms and waves in his life, and he had a firm will. Once he made a decision, he would not easily waver. However, he couldn't help but feel disappointed. He had underestimated the heroes of the world. The hole in Yuan Tian's chest grew larger and larger, devouring him from the inside out. Xian Dongping also suffered the same fate as him. The two, along with the black qi that enveloped them, were purified between the heavens and the earth, completely dissipating like the other fallen practitioners. Wielding high speed, Yan Zhaoga looked coldly at this scene, remaining silent for a long time. Xian Dongping, transcending mortality martial grandmaster, stably one of the top 3 martial grandmaster experts of the 8 extremities world. Yuan Tian, known as the Devil Saint, one of the 6 great martial saints of the 8 extremities world. Today, all of them had perished at Broad Creed Mountain. Their deaths had been single-handedly caused by Yan Zhaoga, garbed in the clear qi robe, wielding the heavenly dragon saber. Yan Di came to Yan Zhaoga's side, asking in a heavy tone, "Where's eldest apprentice brother?" Yan Zhaoga narrated to Yan Di what had happened, as well as what he had heard from Su Fei, and Ying Long too. After hearing it, Yan Di did not speak. Eldest apprentice uncle's corpse is currently placed in an ice coffin on the heaven-rising peak, Yan Zhaoga said softly. Yan Di nodded, exiting the foreign dimension, along with Yan Zhaoga, landing on the top of Broad Creed Mountain's main peak, the heaven-rising peak. At this moment, the great battle on Broad Creed Mountain had already gradually calmed, the decimating abyss martial practitioners virtually all having been slain. It was just that after a great battle, the formerly elegant Green Mountain now had a feeling of devastation as far as the eye could see, especially in the direction of the Back Mountain's Water Ridge Peak, where the devilish domain Grand Formation was weakening unceasingly, but had still not completely vanished. Yen Zhaoga turned and said to Yen Di, "I'll go assist second apprentice uncle in completely suppressing the devilish domain Grand Formation." Standing in front of the ice coffin containing Sure Tai's corpse, Yen Di nodded slightly, not speaking. Yen Zhaoga descended the heaven-rising peak, hurrying over to Water Ridge Peak. On the heaven-rising peak, Ahu, Su Fei, and Han Long are no longer had to guard the coffin as they followed Yen Zhaoga down the mountain, exterminating the remaining enemies. "Young master, after you entered the foreign dimension, I tried to contact the other Broad Creed mountain martial practitioners on the mountain, who said as he left." Yen Zhaoga let out a long breath. "How is the situation on the mountain now?" Ahu answered, "Elder, he is guarding the old chief's secluded cultivation grounds. It is safe and sound there, having not been disturbed. Elder Zhang was heavily injured by Xian Dongping earlier, his injuries rather severe. However, his life is not in danger. The first seat of the Heaven-Sealing Gorge, Elder Gong, was also heavily injured, though his condition is a little better than Elder Zhang's." Yen Zhaoga nodded. Of the peak experts who had previously been stationed at Broad Creed Mountain, other than the old chief Yuan Zhengfeng and his father Yen Di, who had just stepped into the transcending mortality stage, there had been a total of 3 people. They were Xian Dongping and the 2 Grand Elders Zhang Kuan and He Ning. Xian Dongping had betrayed and been slain. Elder Zhang had been heavily injured. An elder he had been guarding Yuan Zhengfeng, unable to leave. The late Essence Talisman experts of the 9th level of the Martial Grandmaster realm consisted of his eldest apprentice uncle Sure Tai, second apprentice uncle Fang Zhuan, the first seat of the Heaven-Sealing Gorge Elder Gong, as well as the former Elder Wang. Now, Elder Wang had betrayed and been personally slain by his eldest apprentice uncle Sure Tai sacrificing himself for justice. Elder Gong had been heavily injured, and it would probably not be easy for Fang Zhuan to suppress the devilish domain Grand Formation. Beneath the late Essence Talisman stage, there were also many other Broad Creed mountain martial practitioners who had perished. This great tribulation had not been easy for Broad Creed Mountain. Meanwhile, the decimating abyss on the other side had virtually been completely wiped out. The Abyss Lord, the Transcending Mortality Martial Grandmaster Xian Dongping, the Devil Saint Yuan Tian, as well as Sima Chue, Elder Wang, and the 2 longtime elders of Black Nightmare Mountain, at least 4 late Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster experts had all been slain. The other decimating Abyss martial practitioners who had invaded Broad Creed Mountain had all perished. However, Yen Zhaoga and Broad Creed Mountain still could not completely relax. Yen Zhaoga swiveled his head to look towards the south, where the fire domain was located. He swiveled his head to look towards the east, where the earth domain was located. It was from there that the people of the Heavenly Thunder Hall had shot the anti-sun, interfering with the clear Qi Grand Formation. Yen Zhaoga's gaze was cold as he weighed the 2 shadow shrinking pouches in his hands. While Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian's corpses would not be left behind after having fallen to the dark side, their belongings would still have been preserved. "Old man Xian, let me see just what it is that you are relying on to attract a martial saint to take such a risk." Chapter 305. Yen Zhaoga opened the shadow shrinking pouches of Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian, respectively. As the top experts in the world, the private properties of these two big shots were naturally quite rich. However, Yen Zhaoge's eyes only swept past most of them. It was not that there were no good things, rare things, precious things, but they could all be slowly sorted out later on. What Yen Zhaoge was currently inspecting were the things that could possibly be traded between Xian Dongping and Yuan Tian. It was most likely a treasure related to the Nine Hells and Hell. Yuan Tian traveled alone. As a martial saint, he had a rich family fortune. He traveled all over the world, ventured into the depths of the earth, and collected many precious treasures and resources. However, comparatively speaking, no matter how deep his foundation was, it would still be unable to compare to sacred ground-level powers like Broad Creed Mountain and the Sacred Sun clan. But even so, Yuan Tian's net worth was richer than Xian Dongping's. While Xian Dongping was one of Broad Creed Mountain's few longtime elders, there was also a limit to how much of Broad Creed Mountain's resources he could use. While Broad Creed Mountain had many resources, they were not Xian Dongping's private property. Broad Creed Mountain's wealth and Xian Dongping's personal wealth were two different things. Of course, the prerequisite for this comparison was that it only counted the resources that Xian Dongping could draw from within Broad Creed Mountain. And Xian Dongping had another identity, the master of the decimating abyss. In the current Eight Extremities world, he was very likely the person closest to the Nine Underworlds. What exactly did Xian Dongping reap from the Nine Underworlds, and how? This was very hard to say. If he had a bargaining chip to attract the Devil Saint Yuan Tian, Yen Zhaoge believed that it originated from here. Heavenly Lake Jade, it shouldn't be. The tranquil, reversal divine medicine, I don't think so. The ghost body congealed paste shouldn't be either. Carefully inspecting, Yen Zhaoge's gaze came to rest on something within Xian Dongping's shadow shrinking pouch after a moment. Nine Underworld's dark soil. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoge checked Yuan Tian's shadow shrinking pouch once more, very quickly discovering his target this time. Within his palm were a few black spheres the size of pearls. After appraising them for a moment, Yen Zhaoge took out one of them and infused his aura qi within. Yen Zhaoge closed his eyes, calming his mind as numerous streams of qi vaguely circulated before him, formless and formless. Carefully savoring it, it actually seemed to contain some profound profundities of the impermanence of all the elements. However, this logic seemed to have been twisted, revealing a sense of lawlessness. Although it was distorted, it had its own unique and profound concept. Yen Zhaoge opened his eyes, staring at the small black ball within his palm. Or it would be more appropriate to call them tree seeds. It is indeed the seed of the impermanent devil tree. Yen Zhaoge looked at that Nine Underworld's dark soil once more. It was said to be soil, but it was more like a cloud and mist, and the aura of the Nine Underworlds was faintly emitted from it. It was breathtaking. Once the Nine Underworlds soil left the Nine Underworlds, it would undergo a change. There would no longer be 100% confidence in nurturing the Anika demon seed and growing it into an Anika demon tree. Before the Great Calamity, the Impermanent Devil Sect had possessed a unique treasure known as the Impermanent Devil Pool, which could allow the dark soil of the Nine Underworlds to not undergo any changes after leaving the Nine Underworlds, maintaining its original effects for a long period of time. That was how they were able to nurture the impermanent devil tree without relying on the Nine Underworlds. However, following the Great Calamity, the impermanent demonic pool had long since turned into nothingness, and the impermanent demonic tree had also gone extinct in the human world. Yen Zhaoge looked at the impermanent devil seed, then at that Nine Underworld's dark soil, which had already somewhat mutated, concentrating on his thoughts. While the Earth domain has mutated, becoming a death ground, hell, it is, at the end of the day, not the true Nine Underworlds. Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. The 9 underworlds have not truly descended into the 8 extremities world. Where did this Xian Dongping get the 9 underworlds dark soil from? As he walked towards Water Ridge Peak, the pondering Yen Zhaoge suddenly halted. Following behind him, Ahu looked stunned at his young master. Yen Zhaoge's gaze flickered as he raised his head to look at the sky, where the clear Qi Grand Formation had already gradually concealed itself within space once more. There was only the Water Ridge Peak of the back mountain, where, under Yen Zhaoge's control, the power of the formation descended unceasingly, helping Fang Zhuan to suppress the Devilish Domain Grand Formation. The Black Devilish Domain Grand Formation gradually withered. The black devilish Qi that surged to the heavens earlier had enveloped the entire Water Ridge Peak, even expanding towards the surrounding areas. Now, it had already been retracted to the base of the Water Ridge Peak. Water Ridge Peak saw the light of day once more, the dense devilish Qi only making its final struggle in the region of the heaven-sealing gorge. Yen Zhaoge raised his head to look at the empty sky, radiance flickering within his left eye. Guided by his power, numerous majestic, dazzling spirit patterns appeared within the sky once more. Yen Zhaoge's gaze shifted between the clear Qi Grand Formation above his head and the domain of devilish Qi beneath the Water Ridge Peak before him, finally falling on the devilish mark on the back of his left hand. After a while, Yen Zhaoge retracted his thoughts, striding forward once more, continuing towards Water Ridge Peak. Having arrived at the heaven-sealing gorge, entering the domain of devilish Qi, arriving at its central region, he saw a tall golden pagoda, currently already not even 5 meters tall. At the top of the pagoda, Fang Zhuan sat in the meditative position, his face slightly pale, but his expression was calm and peaceful, no different from usual. Below the tall golden pagoda, Feng Yunsheng held her black saber as she stood there. Seeing Yen Zhaoge appear, an expression of relief appeared on her face. Yen Zhaoge nodded towards her, and she nodded in return. "Zhaoge, since you have appeared here, that means that the situation outside has already been settled?" A hint of a smile appeared on Fang Zhuan's thin face. Yen Zhaoge bowed towards him. "Yes, second apprentice uncle, Xian Dongping, and the devil Saint Yuan Tian have already been slain. The decimating abyss martial practitioners who invaded our clan, including a few late Essence Talisman martial grandmasters, have all been exterminated. Now, we are in the midst of the final cleanup." Saying thus, Yen Zhaoge paused for a moment before continuing. "Second apprentice uncle, eldest apprentice uncle, he has perished." Hearing his words, the always calm and composed Fang Zhuan abruptly stared wide-eyed. Yen Zhaoge swore that this was the first time ever since he had known Fang Zhuan that he had seen this first seat of Broad Creed Mountain's assignment hall lose his composure like this. Fang Zhuan lowered his head. When he raised it again, his face was even gloomier, but his expression had already returned to normal. "Contact our fellow disciples guarding outside, in case the Sacred Sun clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall make use of this chance to invade." Yen Zhaoge nodded. "I think so, too. I just happen to have an idea that I would like to discuss with second apprentice uncle related to this devilish domain grand formation before us." "Oh," Fang Zhuan asked curiously, "could it be that you want to preserve this formation?" By the side, Ahu and Feng Yunsheng also looked curiously at Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge said solemnly, "While it is preserving it, it is not preserving this devilish domain grand formation. Instead, it is being modified, thus serving some other purpose. I still haven't had the time to tell my father and the other elders about it. Having hurried over here, I would like to ask second apprentice uncle to bear with it for a period of time. If the Sacred Sun clan and the others don't come, we will put an end to it. If they really invade, our clan will also have to make some preparations. After all, it is still uncertain when Grand Master will be able to leave seclusion. Fang Jun met Yan Zhaoge's gaze silently, saying after a while, "All right, I will temporarily maintain this place as it is. You invite junior apprentice brother Yan and the others over to peruse your plan together." Yan Zhaoge said, "That is precisely my intention. I will have to trouble second apprentice uncle." Chapter 306, Fire Domain, Sacred Sun Clan, World Illuminating Peak. Currently, it was night, silent and silent. However, at the top of the World Illuminating Peak, led by the current chief of the Sacred Sun Clan, Huang Su, a group of Sacred Sun Clan experts stood silently. The World Illuminating Young Master, Huang Jie, stood silently behind Huang Su, resembling a shadow. While he was known as the World Illuminating Peak, such a tranquil, deep night seemed to suit Huang Jie even more. He resembled the sun of the night, perfectly merging into the night. Everyone stood silently, already having been there for who knew how long. However, no impatience or anxiety could be seen on their faces. Some of them even had an excited glow in their gazes, as if they were eagerly anticipating something. Suddenly, the pitch-black night sky brightened, resembling the sun rising from the east. The dawn sun illuminated the great earth, bringing light to the world once more. However, at this moment, it was actually not yet dawn. However, the heavens and the earth suddenly turned bright, resembling daytime. It was just that this sunlight did not rise from the horizon, but from the world illuminating peak. Those waiting at the top of the mountain, with the current chief at their head, Huang Su, all bowed. Huang Su was the first to say, "Welcome, Father, out of seclusion." Behind him, Huang Jie continued, "Welcome, Grandfather, out of seclusion." The others bowed deeply as well. "Welcome, Elder Huang, out of seclusion. The sun rises from the east, at the top of the world illuminating peak, resembling the rising sun. Amidst the radiance that illuminated the heavens and the earth, a figure slowly strode out from within. A total of 9 suns gathered into a ring, hovering behind this figure. There was no feeling of extreme heat all over the world illuminating peak, as the heat that resembled a real sun was completely retracted, only infinite light remaining. The light illuminated every corner of the world illuminating peak, not letting go of a single bit as it expanded outwards. Over 10,000 li of land, the dark night dissipated completely, the great earth entering daylight ahead of time. Not much of a terrifying aura was emitted, but everyone present felt as if there was a pair of eyes looking into the depths of their hearts. Before him, even in the face of death, they dared not resist, only able to silently bear it, as if the true God of the great sun that hung high up in the sky descended his judgment. The sound of footsteps resounded, mild and yet real. Following the sound of footsteps, a white-robed old man appeared before Huang Su, Huang Jie, and the others. This old man had a medium build, and his appearance was similar to Huang Su and Huang Jie. On his forehead, there was a golden rune that resembled a blazing sun. This old man was precisely the Sacred Sun Clan's previous chief, one of the current era's 6 great martial saints, the East-coming martial saint. The sun comes east, Huang Guanglia. In the current 8 extremities world, under normal circumstances, Huang Guanglia had always been tacitly acknowledged as the current #1 expert, other than the Sacred Sun Clan's Sacred Sun Saint, whose whereabouts were unknown, the Purple Sun Marshal Saint Zhang Chao, who was also Huang Guanglia's master, and of the same generation as the Exalted Heaven Shaker and the Heaven Diviner that year, apart from the mysterious painting Saint Old Man Mo, who had shown his prowess in front of the world before. It was publicly acknowledged in the current 8 extremities world that Huang Guanglia was superior to the devil Saint Yuan Tian, the lord of the heavenly thunder Hall Shen Li, and the other 4 martial saints. And that was before Huang Guanglia went into seclusion. Now that he had come out of seclusion, who knew what realm he had reached? Huang Guanglia looked at Huang Su and said, "Tell me what happened after I went into seclusion." Huang Su nodded, narrating one matter after another in an orderly manner. His narration had the feeling of covering everything in great detail. Other than the important matters, some trivial matters were also mentioned. Whether it was Huang Guanglia, who was listening to Huang Su's narration, or Huang Jia and the others in the surroundings, none of them showed any signs of impatience as they just stood there quietly. After Huang Su had finally finished narrating Broad Creed Mountain's current situation, he finally fell silent. Huang Guanglia looked towards the north, in the direction of the heaven domain. Yuan Zhengfeng finally dares to enter seclusion and attempt to take that step. Sadly, he is too slow. Huang Guanglia strode forward. Heading north, Broad Creed Mountain has made use of these few years of this old man's seclusion to stir up quite a bit of activity. Since that is so, after this old man leaves seclusion, I will first go to their place to exercise my muscles a little. At the same time, radiance surged before Huang Su, a long golden ruler appearing. Then light erupted as if a world of white light had been created where the world illuminating peak had been. The long golden ruler flew up, landing in Huang Guanglia's hands. Huang Guanglia strode out, instantly leaving far away. Immeasurable light headed north, illuminating the heavens and the earth. Accompanied by Huang Guanglia's departure, night gradually returned to the world illuminating peak. Huang Su and Huang Jia did not move, the 2 remaining on guard over the world illuminating peak. The other Sacred Sun clan martial practitioners were all extremely excited. Did you feel it? The old chief has successfully left seclusion, truly having advanced a step further. He is now truly invincible in the 8 extremities world. Broad Creed Mountain is finished. With Yuan Zhengfeng's old injuries forcibly breaking through into the martial saint realm, his chances of death are at least 50%. Even if he does not die, it will definitely not be easy. Without entering the martial saint realm, even with the support of the clear chi robe and the guardian grand formation, he will still be unable to stop the old chief, not to mention that the old chief has also brought along the great sun, heaven-measuring ruler. The expressions of Huang Su and Huang Jia were comparatively calm. Exchanging glances, Huang Jia nodded. Grandfather has successfully left seclusion, his cultivation base having risen to a whole new level. The general trend is already set. History is always so similar. Broad Creed Mountain's Zhandonga rose to a higher level in the past, exterminating Black Nightmare Mountain after leaving seclusion. The 8 extremities world's 7 great sacred grounds became 6. Huang Su gazed towards the north. Now that father has successfully left seclusion, the 6 great sacred grounds will become 5. On Broad Creed Mountain, Yen Zhaoge was currently instructing who bury this thing in the 9 locations that I have designated. Saying thus, Yen Zhaoge handed a jar to Hu, glancing downwards at the jar. Hu saw that it was all bright red within. "Young master, what is this thing?" Raising his head to look at the dark night sky, feeling the circulation of the clear Qi Grand Formation, Yen Zhaoge casually answered, "The 9 underworld's dark soil obtained from Xian Dongping." Hu blinked. "Young master, when you took it out earlier, wasn't it an illusory image that resembled clouds and mist? Why has it become like red soil now?" "I took care of it myself." As Yen Zhaoge said this, he swiveled his head to look at Water Ridge Peak. The black, devilish Qi beneath Water Ridge Peak had already vanished, only some red light vaguely emanating from it. Yen Zhaoge said to Hu, after burying the 9 underworld's dark soil in different locations, make a trip to the heaven-sealing gorge. Use the method that I told you to conceal some of that red light. Hu answered, "No problem, young master." I'll go right now. The place where Yen Zhaoge was currently standing was not on the main peak, the heaven-rising peak, but on the thunder-shocking peak below it. Beneath his feet, a few marks had been carved out on the soil, crisscrossing as they appeared completely ordinary and unremarkable. Yen Zhaoge looked at the devilish mark on the back of his hand as he extended his foot and carved out another mark on the ground. The eastern sky gradually turned white, dawn about to arrive. Yen Zhaoge squinted as he gazed over. But very quickly, Yen Zhaoge raised his brows, swiveling his head to look towards the south. The horizon over there suddenly turned white, as though a sun was about to rise. To be continued. Chapter 307. Gazing towards the south, Yen Zhaoge saw a measurable light shooting into the skies. Originally, at daybreak, the sunlight had still been extremely dim, but now the region of Broad Creed Mountain had instantly turned from night to day. Boundless, majestic power that far surpassed that of the Devil Saint Yuan Tian swept its way from south to north. If one were to say that facing the Devil Saint Yuan Tian, he could still think of resisting, at this moment, despair and helplessness vaguely arose within his heart. In the air above Broad Creed Mountain, the vast Clear Chi Grand Formation shook mightily at this moment. The Grand Formation seemed to have a life of its own. Startled, the spirit patterns that had originally been concealed amidst space lit up immediately, their power circulating to the maximum as traces of their existence were revealed. However, faced with that infinitely approaching light, the Clear Chi Grand Formation trembled more and more intensely. Looking expressionlessly at this scene, Yen Zhaoge sucked in a deep breath. Without having to guess, he knew that of the Sacred Sun clan, there was only one existence who possessed such power. That was the former chief of the Sacred Sun clan, the East-coming martial saint Huang Guanglia, the current #1 expert of the Sacred Sun clan. Having been in secluded cultivation for so many years, having emerged now, this old man had immediately rushed over to Broad Creed Mountain. And from the looks of it, he had clearly left seclusion successfully, his cultivation base having advanced a step further. Facing the Devil Saint Yuan Tian, a transcending mortality martial grandmaster with a sacred artifact in hand would still have the power to battle, bolstered by the sacred artifact and the Clear Chi Grand Formation. However, even with the Clear Chi robe bolstered by the power of the Clear Chi Grand Formation, the current Huang Guanglia might not be able to be beaten into retreat. Moreover, Yuan Tian's weapon was a high-grade spirit artifact. This time, Huang Guanglia had very likely brought along the Sacred Sun clan's sacred artifact, the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler, a martial saint, and a martial saint like Huang Guanglia at that, with a sacred artifact in hand, his power was even more shocking. Huang Guanglia's speed was too fast, too hasty. While the disturbances caused by him or the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler leaving the world illuminating peak were great, it would be very hard for Broad Creed Mountain to receive the news in time. The only thing worth rejoicing over was that the martial practitioners of Broad Creed Mountain, who had been stationed outside, had all retreated back to the clan beforehand, not having been casually swept through by Huang Guanglia. With the eruption of the chaos of the decimating abyss, with the Sacred Sun clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall sending their troops over, Broad Creed Mountain could already deduce that the day Huang Guanglia emerged from seclusion was definitely approaching. The decimating abyss had made use of the Sacred Sun clan to exert pressure on Broad Creed Mountain, but wasn't the Sacred Sun clan similarly making use of the decimating abyss as a blade? After stabilizing their footing, Broad Creed Mountain began notifying the experts who had been deployed outside to return. Yen Zhaoge looked at that white light that enveloped the heavens and the earth. At this time, Ahu climbed up the thunder-shaking peak and shouted, "Young master, is that Huang Guanglia? He really came out of seclusion in these few days." Yen Zhaoge nodded It was precisely during this time that Xian Dongping made his move. If he succeeded, the 9 underworlds descended. If he failed, the Sacred Sun clan came to deal with us. Ahu's face was illuminated by the distant radiance. Young master, do you think he brought the great sun heaven-measuring ruler? He came too quickly. Our clan couldn't receive the news in time. Yen Zhaoge said. However, he most likely brought it with him. If the Sacred Sun clan has already gotten rid of the decimating abyss spy planted there, they would have nothing to worry about now. With the East Sea Flame devils causing trouble, Jade Sea City and Turbid Wave Pavilion would be dealing with it. Infinite Boundless Mountain had the Heavenly Thunder Hall watching over them. While the Heavenly Thunder Hall might also have their own plans, they would more or less still restrict Infinite Boundless Mountain. The painting saint, Old Man Mo, did not participate in the internal conflicts of the human race. The Sacred Sun clan, indeed, had nothing to worry about. While Huang Guanglia was currently at the peak of his success, he was also a veteran of the martial world for many years, also having to deal with Broad Creed Mountain that had always been a thorn in his side. This time, he would definitely seek to suppress them from above, killing them in a single blow, completely removing Broad Creed Mountain from the sacred ground. The great sun, heaven, measuring ruler would most likely be brought along with him. In the hands of Huang Guanglia, this sacred artifact was completely different from in the hands of his son, the late Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster Huang Su, its power incomparable. Yen Zhaoge swiveled his head and asked, who, the matter we talked about just now, has it all been arranged? Who hurriedly answered, yes, young master. Over at the Heaven Ceiling Gorge, Elder Fong is making preparations, guaranteeing that not a single bit of its aura will leak out. Those 9 underworlds' dark soil, I have also buried them in those 9 places as per your instructions. Yen Zhaoge nodded. That's good then. Next, not saying anything more, Yen Zhaoge lowered his head to look at the numerous marks that were currently being drawn beneath his feet, gradually forming a simple, yet seemingly containing a unique profundity within. Atop the heaven-rising peak, garbed in the clear chi robe, Yen Di sat in the meditative position, the heavenly dragon saber placed horizontally across his knees. Beside him, Elder Zhang and Elder Gong looked as per normal, but their complexions were slightly dispirited, having yet to recover from their heavy injuries. Pressured by that infinite light, the clear chi grand formation began shrinking unceasingly, becoming more and more condensed, becoming smaller and smaller, gradually shrinking to less than an acre in size, transforming into a massive spirit pattern that hovered above the heaven-rising peak, putting up its final resistance. Within that infinite light, a white-clothed old man strode out, neither quickly nor slowly. It was precisely Huang Guanglia. His hands behind his back, he gazed down at the heaven-rising peak. His gaze was completely not on Elder Zhang and Elder Gong, instead falling on Yen Di, appraising him with a single glance before saying mildly, "It really is a pity that you have entered Broad Creed Mountain." Yen Di answered calmly, "It is my honor. A long time ago, this old man once asked you whether you were willing to join my Sacred Sun clan, but you refused." Huang Guanglia said, "This old man has never given people second chances, but for you, this old man is willing to make an exception. This is the second time I'm asking you, are you willing to join my Sacred Sun clan?" Yen Di smiled, not answering, raising the heavenly dragon saber before his chest with his right hand, lightly flicking the blade of the saber with a finger of his left hand. Seeing this, Huang Guanglia said indifferently, "The second time I'm asking you is also the last time. Since you are so stubborn, there is no need to say anything more." Saying thus, Huang Guanglia's gaze swept across Broad Creed Mountain, asking, "I heard that his son is also rather extraordinary." Behind him, the world-illuminating Lord appeared, answering slowly, he cannot be judged by common sense, cannot be treated lightly. A cold snort resounded, Pan Buatai's figure also appearing behind Huang Guanglia. Huang Guanglia said, Su Er's evaluation of him is also rather high. This has really piqued this old man's curiosity. Come out, let this old man take a look. His voice rolled down, resembling the waves of the sea that shook the entire Broad Creed Mountain. Some Broad Creed Mountain disciples with lower cultivation bases could only feel as though their souls were about to be shaken out of their bodies. The expressions of Elder Zhang and Elder Gong both changed. Huang Guanglia's stance seemed to be saying that if they didn't do as he said, he would shake everyone of Broad Creed Mountain to death. Huang Guanglia's expression was mild. You've killed many of my Sacred Sun Clan's people, spoiled many of my Sacred Sun Clan's matters, disrespecting my Sacred Sun Clan time and time again. Come out, let this old man see what kind of young hero you are. Chapter 308. Huang Guanglia's aura surged to the heavens, enveloping the entire Broad Creed Mountain. On Thunder-Shocking Peak, Yen Zhaoge was no exception. He raised his head and looked calmly at Huang Guanglia, who was in the clouds. He could see his opponent's appearance clearly, but in his perception, there was only a vast expanse of whiteness. That feeling was even more worrying than looking directly at the sun. In that instant, Yen Zhaoge felt as though he no longer existed in this world, as though he had been purified by that infinite radiance. Within the sky, Huang Guanglia sensed something, feeling Yen Zhaoge's gaze on him. His gaze also immediately turned towards the Thunder-Shocking Peak, looking at Yen Zhaoge at its peak, accompanied by Huang Guanglia's gaze. That power that had originally enveloped Broad Creed Mountain instantly converged towards Yen Zhaoge. The endless power of sunlight condensed into a single point, piercing through the void, burning the void, and piercing through the void, atop heaven-rising peak. Yen Di stood up, brandishing the heavenly dragon saber within his hand, as the clear chi robe's wide sleeves resembled the heavens as they drifted outwards. The saber intent that could split the heavens, and the earth rose up, splitting the sunlight. Behind Yen Di, the faces of Elder Zhang and Elder Gong were not relaxed. Huang Guanglia had yet to make his move. On the Thunder-Shocking Peak, Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm as he looked at Huang Guanglia cupping his hands before the east-coming martial saint, Broad Creed Mountain disciple. Yen Zhaoge greets you. Appraising Yen Zhaoge with a glance, Huang Guanglia said casually after a while, purely in terms of martial cultivation and strength, whether or not you can compare to your father, Yen Di, in the future at the same cultivation level at the same age, you have caused an even greater disturbance than Yen Di. A pity this old man has already decided to exterminate Broad Creed Mountain today and kill Yen Di. As for you, I won't stay either. Huang Guanglia stretched out one of his hands, and a vast expanse of whiteness shone from his palm. The Sacred Sun Clan's direct lineage, the head of the 7 great sun arts. The light shines, and the world becomes white. The ultimate skill that had once been displayed in the hands of Pan Buatai, in Huang Guanglia's hands, was a completely different sight. In a trance, there was no longer white light flashing in front of everyone's eyes. Instead, it was pitch black. The light was so bright that everyone felt like they were going blind under the power of Huang Guanglia's palm. It was as if he was the only truth in the world, the only ruler, the only light, and everything else was reduced to darkness and silence. The sun rose in the east, and at daybreak, the real sun had already risen above the horizon. However, at this moment, it was as though night had descended upon Broad Creed Mountain once more, above the heaven-rising peak. The radiance of the clear Chi Grand Formation that had always guarded Broad Creed Mountain dimmed at this moment, resembling the light of a candle about to be extinguished. At the top of the mountain, specks of light lit up on the clear Chi robe, that Yendi was wearing some black, some yellow, vast, and vigorous. But under Huang Guanglia's palm force, these lights lit up and extinguished bit by bit. The terrifying light swept through the world, seemingly wanting to wipe broad Creed Mountain off the face of the earth. Yendi's gaze was unwavering as he faced the powerful Huang Guanglia fearlessly. He took a deep breath and raised the heavenly dragon saber, which was glowing with a dim purple light. As Yendi raised his saber, the purple radiance on its blade flickered once more. The clear qi robe fluttered unceasingly, numerous streams of clear qi emanating outwards as the 8 peaks of broad Creed Mountain shook together. Without the envelopment of the devilish domain grand formation, Water Ridge Peak resonated with the other 8 peaks as it was enveloped by the numerous streams of clear qi of the clear qi robe. Above the heaven rising peak, the massive rune formed of the clear qi grand formation began shrinking a step further. The heavenly dragon saber in Yendi's hand shot a streak of purple light into the horizon, connecting with the center of the rune formed of the clear qi grand formation. The roar of a dragon resounded as the purple light expanded unceasingly, finally resembling a heavenly pillar. The streams of clear qi emitted by the clear qi robe enveloped the purple pillar of light, combining with the clear qi grand formation. Yendi exhaled and roared, chopping down with his saber. Like the heavenly pillar collapsing, the heavens overturning, the infinite sky transforming together into a purple saber. On the blade of the saber that could not be seen in the distance, a pattern was inlaid, precisely condensed of the clear qi grand formation. As the streams of clear qi surged, black or yellow radiance also circulated on the blade of the saber. The majestic power of the clear qi grand formation, and the clear qi robe was currently all bolstered on Yendi's body without reservation, aiding him in executing this supreme saber. As the purple light flickered, it was finally no longer dominated by the white light. The darkness retreated, light returning to broad Creed Mountain once more. The majestic, tyrannical purple saber light mightily broke through that infinite white light. Seeing this scene, the experts of the Sacred Sun clan all had looks of admiration on their faces. However, they were not worried. Amongst martial grandmasters, you can indeed be said to be invincible, Huang Guanglia nodded. However, that is only amongst martial grandmasters. The current you is still inexperienced. Saying thus, Huang Guanglia extended his palm forward, retracting his index finger and thumb, only 3 fingers remaining as he pointed towards broad Creed Mountain and Yendi from afar. The tips of his middle finger, ring finger, and little finger all lit up with a golden radiance. While it was only a faint golden light, it seemed to contain infinite destructive power. It was even more powerful than light illumination, great white under the heavens. Beneath the 3 specks of golden light, the toughest of the sun, indestructible. Yendi's saber light instantly shook. Pan Buotai laughed coldly. You have the immeasurable heavenly saber, while my Sacred Sun clan has the extreme Yang fist, 3 suns opening heaven. Huang Guanglia executed the Sacred Sun clan's supreme martial art, the killing move of the extreme Yang fist, 3 suns opening heaven. Incomparably ferocious power mightily struck towards broad Creed Mountain, and Yendi, 3 specks of golden light pierced through the heavens and the earth. Yendi let out a long breath, the massive heaven-splitting saber chopping out horizontally, intercepting the 3 specks of golden light. Amidst the rumbling, the purple saber light shook unceasingly. In the process of clashing with the purple saber light, the 3 specks of golden light merged, gradually converging into a single point, their power rising yet another level. Yendi's expression was calm as he held his saber horizontally before his chest, finally adopting a defensive stance. The purple saber light resembled a heavenly screen, splitting the heavens and the earth into 2 worlds. On one side was broad Creed Mountain. On the other was that terrifying golden light. The purple light and the golden light were locked in a stalemate, bolstered by the clear Qi robe and the clear Qi grand formation. Yendi resembled a pillar that supported the heavens, standing erect between the heavens and the earth, not letting Huang Guangliu advance lightly. In the current eight extremities world, Huang Guangliu could virtually already be called the #1 expert. As a martial grandmaster, with the help of the clear Qi robe and the clear Qi grand formation, Yendi successfully blocked him. He also guarded broad Creed Mountain, not letting the aftershocks of the clash of the two powers affect the others of broad Creed Mountain. If he did not care about the safety of his fellow disciples, Yendi would have the power to counterattack, not needing to adopt a defensive stance. The attacking Yendi was the strongest Yendi. However, no one forgot that the current Huang Guangliu was unarmed. The Sacred Sun Clan's sacred artifact, the Great Sun Heaven-measuring ruler, had yet to make an appearance. On the thunder-shocking peak, Yen Zhaoge and Ahu watched this scene, the latter swallowing his saliva after Huang Guangliu successfully advanced a step further. He is truly terrifying. No wonder the old chief wanted to enter secluded cultivation to attempt a breakthrough into the martial saint realm no matter what. Within the sky, Huang Guangliu swiveled his head to say to the world-illuminating Lord, Pan Butai, and the others, Yendi is a rare talent. In the final battle of his life, this old man will give him a chance to display it. As for broad Creed Mountain, I'll leave it to you. The world-illuminating Lord and the others nodded in unison. Then, a great sun rose within the sky, rapidly descending towards broad Creed Mountain. To be continued. Chapter 309. Pan Butai, the world-illuminating Lord, and the others descended towards broad Creed Mountain together. Elder Zhang, Elder Gong, and the others looked at each other solemnly. Pan Buatai's gaze directly fell on Yen Zhaoge on the thunder-shocking peak. Child of the Yen family, you killed this old man's grandson. Today shall be the day you pay with your life. The world-illuminating Lord appraised the 8 peaks of broad Creed Mountain. Earlier, in the great battle between broad Creed Mountain and the decimating abyss, the traces of destruction caused by it had already been mostly removed. However, that fire-leaving peak that had its peak shaved off and sharpened once more still displayed to the world what kind of great tribulation broad Creed Mountain had previously encountered. And now, an even greater tribulation had descended, not giving those of broad Creed Mountain any chance to catch their breath. The world-illuminating Lord said mildly, as one of the 6 great sacred grounds of the 8 extremities world, broad Creed Mountain is actually a place that harbors evil, secretly communicating with the 9 underworlds and establishing the decimating abyss, intending to guide the 9 underworlds to descend into our 8 extremities world, causing the evil devils to wreak havoc and plunge all living beings into misery and suffering. Your broad Creed Mountain has brought calamity to the common people, and everyone has the right to punish you. Hearing his words, the faces of Elder Zhang and the other broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners all changed, greatly enraged. A female's voice resounded. The Sacred Sun Clan is indeed still this shameless. The one who had spoken was Fu Enshu, her brows arching upwards. Battle Flame Devils, your Sacred Sun Clan has only been working without putting in any effort, intent on preserving your strength. Now that our clan has consecutively obstructed the descent of the 9 underworlds, even battling the decimating abyss in a bloody battle, exterminating them, you have instead come to take advantage of us. I've never seen the glory of your so-called #1 holy land in external battles. Only the internal battles between the holy lands of the human race have come to show off. Fu Enshu shouted angrily. Now you still dare to come and smear our sect. You are truly shameless. The world-illuminating Lord said in an indifferent tone, Isn't my Sacred Sun clan currently purging the spies of the Eight Extremities world, returning peace to this world, and severing the possibility of the 9 underworlds descending? He appraised broad Creed Mountain with his gaze. You are currently planning for the descent of the 9 underworlds, and my Sacred Sun clan has specially come to stop you. That is all. The world-illuminating lord shook his head. Before this, I really had not thought that the lofty sacred ground, broad Creed Mountain, would actually be willing to be the dogs of the 9 underworlds. Elder Zhang's expression was ugly, and Elder Gong's temper was also explosive, as he said furiously, "Your Sacred Sun clan will only face internal enemies, not external enemies. As this old man sees it, you are the true spies of the Flame Devils and the 9 underworlds." The world-illuminating lord said coldly, "The source of the decimating abyss, the creator of the decimating abyss, the lord of the decimating abyss, is the number 2 figure of your broad Creed Mountain, second only to Yuan Zhengfeng, Xian Dongping. This matter has already spread throughout the entire world, and it is not something that you can conceal with just a few words of quibbling." Elder Zhang said in a deep voice, "Xian Dongping has already been purged by our clan, and even Devil Saint Yuan Tian has been executed as well. Decimating Abyss attacked our clan, and has also been destroyed. We do not tolerate your slander." A voice rang out from afar. "It's just a ploy by you guys to abandon the Rook to protect the king, a ploy to deliberately numb the world." Following the voice, several figures appeared in the sky. They were led by a middle-aged man and a white-haired old man. The middle-aged man held a bow that flickered with purple light in his hands. It was precisely the first seat elder of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, Lin Tianfeng. The old man beside him had an even higher cultivation base, being a Grand Elder of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, a peak martial grandmaster who had stepped into the transcending mortality stage many years ago. He had always remained secluded within the Heavenly Thunder Hall for many years, rarely making an appearance this year. Behind the two of them were also numerous Heavenly Thunder Hall experts. Their arrival caused all of Broad Creed Mountain to feel a suffocating feeling of black clouds pressuring over the city, threatening to overwhelm it. The one who had just spoken was precisely Lin Tianfeng, standing within the air. He said, "Believing you today, we will retreat here and now, not letting our guard down. Tomorrow will be the day when the 9 underworlds descend upon the 8 extremities world." Pan Buotai said coldly from the side, "What's the point in talking so much with them?" Whatever the reason, Broad Creed Mountain is destined to be destroyed today. Pan Buotai stared coldly at all of Broad Creed Mountain, staring coldly at Yen Zhaoga. "That day in the Eastern Tang, you joined hands with Jade Sea City to force my Sacred Sun clan into retreat. Today, the tides of fortune have turned. The humiliation we suffered back then, my Sacred Sun clan will return it all to you. Today, the 6 great sacred grounds of the 8 extremities world, Broad Creed Mountain, facing powerful enemies, while Broad Creed Mountain felt immense pressure from Elder Zhang, Elder Gong, Fu Enshu, and the other bigwigs up to the other martial practitioners of the clan. They were all on high alert. On the thunder-shocking peak, Yen Zhaoga crossed his arms before his chest, his gaze shifting between Pan Buotai, the world-illuminating Lord Lin Tianfeng, and the others, as well as that lofty Huang, Guanglia high up above. Facing the death threat of a transcending mortality martial grandmaster like Pan Buotai, Yen Zhaoga's face showed no fear. Currently, he was only analyzing the situation very seriously. The situation before him required him to make arrangements for himself, to choose a suitable target, or rather, to choose a target, swiveling his head to look in the direction of the back mountains converting Lake Peak. Yen Zhaoga thought, "I wonder if Grand Master will be able to make it in time." According to his original estimation, it should only be these 2 days. While their thoughts might not be the same as Yen Zhaoga's, with powerful enemies bearing down on them at this moment, There were also other martial practitioners of Broad Creed Mountain who unconsciously looked in the direction of the back mountains converting Lake Peak. There, an old man who had always protected Broad Creed Mountain for many years was taking a risk for Broad Creed Mountain. But very quickly, the expressions of these Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners all dimmed. First, not speaking of the fact that this old man was risking his life, either succeeding or dying. Even if he succeeded, it wouldn't be within such a short period of time. Huang Guanglia's voice resounded from within the air. Yendi, I'll tell you plainly. This old man has brought the great sun heaven-measuring ruler along with me. The reason why I'm not using it is because you are a rare talent. In the final battle of your life, this old man will let your brilliance blossom before the eyes of the world. But if you place your hopes on Yuan Zhengfeng, then you'd better give up early. Yuan Zhengfeng, he's not just a step slower than this old man. With his old injuries, even if he can successfully step into the martial saint realm, he would still need at least a year's time. This old man knows that he has only been in seclusion for a few months. Do you think that this old man will need more than half a year to break through to your Broad Creed Mountain? First try and see if you can block this old man for a quarter of an hour. Huang Guanglia's voice reverberated between the heavens and the earth, reverberating throughout the entire Central Heaven region. Moreover, this old man has emerged from seclusion successfully this time. With the great sun heaven-measuring ruler in hand, even if Yuan Zhengfeng has also become a martial saint, this old man will definitely trample over this Broad Creed Mountain today. Now, the back mountain of Broad Creed Mountain abruptly shook intensely, a boundlessly majestic will that seemed to be as high as the heavens emanating from within. Unreasonable old Huang, the wind is too strong. It'll cut your tongue. A massive pillar of light rose from converting Lake Peak, shooting straight into the horizon, a figure indistinctly visible within. Beneath converting Lake Peak, Elder He, who had always been guarding over Yendi, had no time to rejoice. His hands changed as a rune arose, landing on the back of that person within the pillar of light. That person raised his palm towards the heavens. The runes of the clear Qi Grand Formation on Yendi's saber light instantly flying out, landing on that person's palm. Having lost the help of the clear Qi Grand Formation, Huang Guanglia's terrifying power instantly pressured over with the momentum of toppling mountains and overturning seas. However, that figure in the air above converting Lake Peak strode forward, already arriving before Yendi, raising a palm. Under the violent clash of forces, the massive heaven-obscuring hand directly shattered the golden light condensed of Huang Guanglia's 3 suns opening heaven. Huang Guanglia's explosive roar resounded between the heavens and the earth. Yuan Zheng Feng. To be continued. Chapter 310. A figure appeared before him. He did not look tall, merely being an old man with a medium build. However, as this old man stood there, his body seemed as tall as the heavens. It was precisely Broad Creed Mountain's old chief, Yuan Zhengfeng. Within the sky, Huang Guanglia looked down on Yuan Zhengfeng. You actually left seclusion so quickly, even successfully transcending tribulation and entering sainthood. Before you entered seclusion, your old injuries had already recovered. Huang Guanglia quickly understood. How did you do it? If your injuries had long since healed, why didn't you enter seclusion earlier? Could it be that you were waiting to play a trick on me? Yuan Zhengfeng smiled. It's not as senseless as you think. It was just that you were unlucky, and I was lucky. Looking at the old chief on the heaven-rising peak, the Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners all let out cheers. Meanwhile, the expressions of the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall martial practitioners of the world-illuminating Lord Pan Buetai and Lin Tianfeng were no longer relaxed. Not only had Yuan Zhongfeng successfully stepped into the martial saint realm, he had also left seclusion much earlier than everyone had expected. This truly caught them unprepared. At the end of the day, this was where Broad Creed Mountain was located. Yuan Zhongfeng held the home ground advantage here, bolstered by the clear Qi Grand Formation. Even if Huang Guanglia successfully ascended to a higher level in the martial saint realm, it was still unknown whether he would be able to defeat Yuan Zhongfeng here at Broad Creed Mountain. Looking at Yuan Zhongfeng, Huang Guanglia said slowly, "Even if you have transcended mortality and entered sainthood, even if you have left seclusion, so what? To this old man, there isn't much of a difference." Saying thus, Huang Guanglia raised his hands together, then pushed out horizontally with his palms. Majestic golden light congregated between his hands. All the other light between the heavens and the earth dimmed, seemingly all congregated within Huang Guanglia's hands. As the golden light flickered, resembling the true sun in the sky, it descended to less than 100,000 feet above the ground. Infinite heat and destructive explosive power all concentrated here. Extreme Yang Fist, Sun Comes East. The title of the East Rising Martial Saint, Huang Guanglia, was derived from this. The violent power, with a destructive momentum, caused the heavens and earth around Broad Creed Mountain to completely turn into a furnace, turning into a world of golden light. However, in this world, a huge palm suddenly stretched out, as if it was pulling the surrounding world into its palm. Yuan Zhongfeng looked at Huang Guanglia. "Old Rude Huang, it's my fault. I've been stuck in the great Grandmaster realm for too long, causing you to forget that when we were in the same realm, you were always defeated by me." As the huge palm flipped, heaven and earth spun. That blazing sun seemed to be caught in Yuan Zhongfeng's hand. A true man does not boast about his past achievements. You are still one step ahead of me now. I also admit that your current cultivation and strength are still a level higher than mine. However, although we are both martial sages, the gap between us is much smaller than the gap between martial sages and great Grandmaster level martial sages. Yuan Zhongfeng's heavenly broad creed palm mightily descended, directly extinguishing that terrifying sun. And now, the place where we are fighting is my Broad Creed Mountain. Under normal circumstances, in order to trample on someone else's mountain gate, the top experts of both sides had to be at least one realm higher than the opponent. This was under the precondition that the two sides were evenly matched at the same cultivation level. As the great golden sun was extinguished, all-encompassing flowing fire scattered, transforming into a dense golden rain of fire that descended. The light of the fire was bright. However, it illuminated the faces of the world-illuminating Lord and the others. In the distance, two extremely powerful auras rapidly neared. One was ferocious and violent, the other vigorous and heavy. The two clashed and tangled with each other while simultaneously shooting in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain. Yuan Zhongfeng and Huang Guanglia did not look sideways. They were all clear on who the newcomers were. One was one of the current peak experts of the Eight Extremities world, the Lord of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, the Green Thunder Martial Saint, thunder moving all directions, Shun Li. The other was one of the few sacred artifacts of the Eight Extremities world, the heaven-cleaving axe that belonged to Infinite Boundless Mountain. As they neared Broad Creed Mountain, these two powerful auras gradually slowed, continuing to clash with each other, yet no longer nearing Broad Creed Mountain. Huang Guanglia ignored the newcomers as he opened his palm, a long golden ruler suddenly appearing within it. The sacred artifact of the Sacred Sun Clan, the great sun heaven measuring ruler. With the sacred artifact in hand, Huang Guanglia's aura skyrocketed once more before he wielded the great sun heaven measuring ruler, striking towards Broad Creed Mountain and Yuan Zhongfeng. It was like the great sun streaking through the air, measuring the horizon, its majestic power unstoppable. In the hands of a martial saint, the power unleashed by a sacred artifact was terrifying, far surpassing what a martial grandmaster like Huang Su could hope to achieve. However, on Broad Creed Mountain, Yan Di had already taken off the clear qi robe. Yuan Zhengfeng spread his arms to the sides, bolstered by the clear qi robe, his majestic power skyrocketing, once more comparable to the heavens. He mightily struck out with the heavenly broad creed palm, once more forcibly meeting Huang Guanglia and the great sun heaven-measuring ruler head-on. As the violent forces collided, the entire heavens and earth shook slightly. Cracks even vaguely appeared within the air, the very fabric of space breaking apart. On Broad Creed Mountain, after having taken off the clear qi robe, Yan Di did not remain idle as he brandished the heavenly dragon saber, pointing it straight towards Pan Buotai, the world-illuminating lord, and the others. The roar of a dragon resounded as a shocking saber-intent shot into the skies, while Elder Zhang, Elder Gong, and the others were heavily injured beneath Converting Lake Peak. Elder, he could finally break free of her shackles, no longer having to stand her ground. Spreading her palms wide, she also attacked towards the enemies attacking the mountain. The momentum of Yan Di's saber resembled the heavens, as beneath that saber, the heavens seemed to be collapsing as a terrifying power enveloped the world-illuminating Lord Pan Buotai, Lin Tianfeng, and the transcending mortality martial grandmasters of the Heavenly Thunder Hall. What shocked Pan Buotai and the others was that even with so many of them facing Yan Di, they actually felt that they were unable to withstand him. The four all retreated in defeat. Gazing at Pan Buotai, Yan Di said coldly, "Just now, who did you say you wanted to pay with your life?" Amidst Pan Buotai's furious roar, he raised his high-grade spirit artifact saber, chopping towards Yan Di with a west-tilting, heaven-incinerating saber. Beneath Yan Di's saber, Pan Buotai's weapon flew out of his hands. The true martial avatar he had attained after entering transcending mortality, the west-tilting heaven-incinerating avatar, was directly hacked into two by Yan Di. Pan Buotai was both shocked and enraged, only to see Yan Di retract his weapon. "If not for you disrupting the clear qi grand formation, our clan would not have had to expend so much effort in suppressing the decimating abyss. My eldest apprentice brother would not have needed to sacrifice himself for a noble cause, and my Broad Creed Mountain would also not have suffered such great casualties as it has now." A cold light flickered within his tiger-like eyes as Yan Di abruptly raised his hand into a fist, his fist bright as Vajra, the head of the 8 extreme arts, the martial art that the Iron Lion King Shirt Tai had been proficient in. Vajra body, Yan Di mightily punched forward. Like a kite whose string had been cut, Pan Buotai was sent flying. Seeing this, the faces of the world-illuminating Lord Lin Tianfeng and the others all changed as they began retreating, while Huang Guanglia and the great sun heaven-measuring ruler were strong. At the gates of Broad Creed Mountain, they were unable to do anything to Yuan Zhengfeng and the clear qi robe bolstered by the clear qi grand formation. At this point in the battle, destroying Broad Creed Mountain was already impossible. The world-illuminating Lord Lin Tianfeng and the others all swore viciously within their hearts, "Let's see if you can hide within Broad Creed Mountain forever." Now, on the thunder-shocking peak, Yan Zhaoge, who had gradually been ignored by the bigwigs here, gazed straight at the world-illuminating Lord and the others within the air. "With Grand Master not leaving seclusion, I need to consider whether I have a greater chance of success in dealing with Huang Guanglia or keeping the rest of you here. Now, I feel that I don't have to choose, and can fight for both at the same time." Yan Zhaoge's gaze was cold as he stamped his foot. On the thunder-shocking peak, spirit patterns lit up. To be continued. Chapter 311. At the top of the thunder-shaking peak, lines and lines interweaved. They looked very ordinary, as if a child was scribbling on the ground with a wooden stick. However, accompanied by Yen Zhaoge's stomp, the ordinary-looking pattern, which had still seemed completely ordinary a moment ago, lit up with a blurry radiance the next moment. Yen Zhaoge slowly inhaled, slowly exhaled, before raising his palm. He suddenly knelt down on one knee and slammed his palm on the center of the formation pattern on the peak of Thunder Shaking Peak. The glowing formation quickly began to operate. Between the numerous peaks of Broad Creed Mountain, streams of strange chi suddenly surged into the skies. There were a total of 9 streams of air, and within each stream of air, there was a dark red light flashing, which was strange and unpredictable. The eyes of Yuan Zhongfeng, who was currently clashing with Huang Guanglia, flashed as the spirit patterns of the clear chi grand formation surfaced within his pupils. Then, the runes in his left pupil gradually dissipated. Behind him, there was also a rune shining. It was the one that elder he had left on him when he had just come out of seclusion. At the same time, elder he sent a voice transmission to Yuan Zhongfeng to explain the situation to him as quickly as possible. Yuan Zhongfeng currently did not feel surprised in the slightest as he circulated the power of the clear chi robe, resisting Huang Guanglia with all his might. Huang Guanglia only felt that the pressure that Yuan Zhongfeng was exerting on him had suddenly decreased. The experienced East-coming martial saint did not feel happy because of this. He knew very well whether Yuan Zhongfeng was a spent force or not. Just like him, Yuan Zhongfeng had come out of seclusion perfectly. His body was in peak condition, and there was no problem at all. His strength had weakened merely because the power of the clear chi grand formation was no longer fully supporting him. Then, where had the other portion of the clear chi grand formation's power gone to now? On the thunder-shocking peak, white light suddenly flickered within Yen Zhaoge's left pupil, 3 specks of golden light flickering within. The next moment, the spirit patterns of the clear chi grand formation appeared within Yen Zhaoge's left pupil. Yen Zhaoge pressed his right palm on the ground of the mountain peak, his left hand extending towards the bald sky. Accompanied by Yen Zhaoge's outstretched hand, the spirit patterns of the clear chi grand formation surfaced within the sky, merging with the numerous strange red streams of chi that shot into the skies above Broad Creed Mountain Range. The runes of the clear chi grand formation, which had originally flickered with white light, were gradually dyed with a layer of strange red at this moment. At the same time, at the foot of the Water Ridge Peak, in the heaven-ceiling gorge. Here, a tall tower stood tall. The shape of the pagoda was exactly the same as the Golden Pagoda at the core of the demonic domain grand formation that guided the descent of the 9 underworlds. However, this tower was not golden, and there were no chain-like black runes winding around it. There was also no strange red door of light at the top of the tower. The entire tower was emitting a dark red light. It was just that following Yen Zhaoge's special manipulation techniques, these lights did not radiate outwards as they were concealed within the darkness of the heaven-ceiling gorge. This dark red pagoda was like the spirit patterns that Yen Zhaoge had inscribed at the top of the thunder-shocking peak earlier. No aura of power leaked out from it. A figure sat on the tall red tower. It was precisely Feng Zhuan. He had been waiting quietly and did not make a move. Even when the enemy attacked the mountain at its most critical moment, he still did not make any move. Now, feeling the changes in Broad Creed Mountain and the clear chi grand formation, a bright light flashed within Feng Zhuan's eyes. He made a simple action, which was to get up and leave the dark red tower. Accompanied by Feng Zhuan's departure, the dark red tower, which had been completely silent earlier, instantly lit up. The 9 strange dark red streams of chi between Broad Creed Mountain Range floated upwards into the sky, merging with the spirit patterns of the clear Qi grand formation in the sky, while descending downwards, congregating within the heaven-sealing gorge. 9 thick chains appeared out of thin air. They were all dark red in color, and they wrapped around the tower. The tall, red tower rumbled, not growing in size, instead beginning to gradually shrink. On the thunder-shocking peak, Yen Zhaoge looked up into the sky, overseeing the overall situation. There, the spirit patterns of the clear Qi grand formation had already turned completely dark red. Yen Zhaoge clenched his left hand into a fist, punching outwards. On the back of his left hand, a sigil suddenly lit up. That was the devilish mark that had sealed the great 9 underworld's door in the sand region. The spirit patterns of the clear Qi grand formation in the sky shook mightily before a pillar of light descended, enveloping Yen Zhaoge. With Yen Zhaoge as their center, numerous spirit patterns extended outwards, one spirit pattern after another. Yet another miniature spirit pattern of the clear Qi grand formation appeared at the top of the thunder-shocking peak. The 2 formations, one large, one small, formed 2 massive rings of light, encircling the mountain peak. The 2 rings of light, one internal, one external, one clockwise, one anti-clockwise, all circulated simultaneously. In the outside world, broad Creed Mountain Range shook simultaneously at this moment. The tall red tower within the heaven-sealing gorge rapidly shrunk, while the clear Qi grand formation in the sky circulated to the maximum at this moment. When the tall red tower completely disappeared, a tiny black dot shockingly appeared at the center of the dark red, clear Qi grand formation. This black dot grew larger unceasingly, finally transforming into an existence that resembled a black hole. It seemed to lead to a boundless, unknown land, but a shocking aura emanated from within. In the surroundings of Broad Creed Mountain, the world-illuminating Lord Lin Tianfeng and the others all looked shocked at this scene. Feeling that something was wrong, they wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. The dark red, clear Qi grand formation collapsed mightily, transforming into all-encompassing strange red light, enveloping the enemies attacking Broad Creed Mountain. One by one, starting from the world-illuminating Lord, Lin Tianfeng, and the others, all the martial practitioners of the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall, who had arrived, were enveloped by the red light, their bodies then involuntarily flying towards that black hole. The world-illuminating Lord roared anxiously, immeasurable radiance radiating from his palm as the heavenly altar erected, 8 suns appearing as he executed the supreme martial art of light, illuminating all great white beneath the heavens. Lin Tianfeng roared furiously, his entire body flickering with the light of thunder as the heavenly altar of purplish-green lightning condensed as he executed the supreme martial art of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, the 9 rotating Thunder King saber, all-encompassing thunderbolts rampaging throughout the sky. Pan Buotai, who had been heavily injured by Yen Di, now also struggled to circulate his strength, wanting to resist the pull of the strange formation before him. That transcending mortality martial grandmaster of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, who was battling Elder, he also used his full strength, his true martial avatar, rising, shaking the heavens, and shaking the earth. Enveloped within the red light, Yen Di, Elder He, and the other Broad Creed Mountain experts were not affected in the slightest as they now launched their attacks, killing or crippling their opponents one by one. The world-illuminating Lord, Lin Tianfeng, and the others had originally been resisting the red light with all their might. Now, being attacked once more, they were instantly powerless to resist as they were dragged towards the black hole at lightning speed. Feeling the terrifying aura within, everyone cried out in shock. 9 underworlds! That red light shot towards Huang Guanglia in midair. Huang Guanglia snorted coldly, wanting to repel the red light. However, as Yuan Zhengfeng struck out with a palm, Huang Guanglia was momentarily distracted as he was instantly dragged along by the red light. Wanting to break free, Yuan Zhongfeng's attacks that seemed to be able to topple the heavens and overturn the seas pressured down from the side, causing him to be completely unable to focus on dealing with the variant clear qi grand formation that Yen Zhaoge controlled. As an exalted martial saint with a sacred artifact in hand, Huang Guanglia could only helplessly be pulled along. In the blink of an eye, the black hole was right before him. Flames that surged to the heavens flashed within Huang Guanglia's eyes. Feeling the terrifying aura within that black hole, he clenched his teeth, glancing at the great sun, heaven-measuring ruler within his hands. With a wild howl that shook the heavens, Huang Guanglia dropped his great sun, heaven-measuring ruler. As violent golden light flickered, the red light that enveloped Huang Guanglia as well as the attacking Yuan Zhongfeng were both jolted into retreat. Huang Guanglia transformed into a golden light, instantly leaving far away. His eyes bloodshot. Looking back, he saw the ancestral treasure of the sacred Sun Clan, one of the few sacred artifacts of the Eight Extremities world, the great sun heaven-measuring ruler shuddering as it was still sucked into that black hole sent to the legendary 9 underworlds. In the air above Broad Creed Mountain, the strange dark red grand formation circulated, seeming to have transformed into a bloody slaughterhouse at this moment. The black hole within the sky resembled a meat grinder, resembled a millstone, resembled the opened mouth of a massive beast that devoured the heavens. The world-illuminating lord, Pan Buatai Lin Tianfeng, one martial practitioner after another of the sacred Sun Clan, and the heavenly Thunder Hall was buried here. To be continued. Chapter 312. The violent black hole in the sky not only led to the terrifying 9 underworlds, but the distorted space also formed a huge destructive force. Many of the martial artists who were sucked into it had their bodies torn apart by the ruptured space when they approached the black hole. The already heavily injured Grand Elder of the Sacred Sun Clan, Pan Buatai, let out a furious roar that shocked the heavens. Yen Zhaoge, Yen Di. With a furious roar, half of his body was swallowed by the black hole, but the space around him was distorted. The heavily injured Pan Buatai was powerless to resist, as his body was directly chopped in half by the terrifying void energy. Pan Buatai, a transcendent martial grandmaster of the same generation as Huang Guanglia, Yuan Zhongfeng, and the others, who had dominated the world for many years, had perished in the void. The head of the sacred Sun Clan's world-illuminating lord of this generation's 7 reigning sons, Lin Tianfeng of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, as well as a Grand Elder of the Heavenly Thunder Hall, were swept within the black hole together. The terrifying dark red grand formation within the sky, and that black hole wreaked havoc at this moment, wreaking havoc on the souls of all who had invaded Broad Creed Mountain. Within the black hole, a speck of golden light floated up and down, struggling unceasingly. It was the saint weapon, the great sun heaven-measuring ruler. But now that the great sun heaven-measuring ruler had lost its master, although it was strong, it was gradually swept away by the black hole and disappeared without a trace. Huang Guanglia broke free from the dark red light of the formation and flew far away. Looking back, he saw that his holy weapon had finally been swallowed by the black hole. At this moment, the East Emergence martial saint was so enraged that he almost vomited blood. The great sun heaven-measuring ruler, the supreme treasure of the sacred Sun Clan, having been passed down for many years, it had always been the symbol of the clan, as well as the important thing that allowed the sacred Sun Clan to stand tall in this world. When the clan did not have a martial saint, or when he, Huang Guanglia, had been in secluded cultivation, it had been the great sun heaven-measuring ruler that had supported the sacred Sun Clan from falling, maintaining its mighty name as it contended with the other sacred grounds. Even if the sect was weak for a while, it still had enough resources to make others not dare to offend it, like Broad Creed Mountain's clear chi robe and Infinite Boundless Mountain's heaven-cleaving axe. Meanwhile, the reason why the Sacred Sun clan had been able to sit stably on the throne of the #1 sacred ground of the Eight Extremities world in recent years was because of Huang Guanglia's status as a martial saint, existing alongside the sacred artifact, the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler being the only one of its kind in the Eight Extremities world, able to suppress the other sacred grounds. Huang Guanglia had painstakingly been in secluded cultivation for many years. During the War of the Eastern Tang, when Broad Creed Mountain had counterattacked the Fire Domain, he had forcibly endured and not emerged from seclusion. Having broken out of seclusion this time, his cultivation base had advanced a step further. His momentum had truly shocked the heavens as he had drawn the attention of the entire Eight Extremities world. Even their original ally, the Heavenly Thunder Hall, was beginning to feel uneasy. The reason why Huang Guanglia did not use the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler when he attacked the mountain was because he had misjudged the time Yuan Zhengfeng would come out of seclusion, and he had absolute confidence in himself. On the other hand, it was to intimidate the Heavenly Thunder Hall and Infinite Boundless Mountain. This time, Huang Guanglia brought the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler to the heaven region in the north. He was like the great sun in the sky, like a tiger that was going to sweep the world. The Sacred Sun clan, which had originally been the #1 sacred ground of the current Eight Extremities world, whether it was in terms of strength or reputation, had both skyrocketed here. Their first target was yet another death-secluded cultivation of their chief, Broad Creed Mountain, who had just suffered a great tribulation at the same time. The battle hadn't even begun, but the outcome seemed to have been decided. Huang Guanglia was full of confidence when Yuan Zhengfeng successfully broke out of seclusion and displayed his shocking strength. At most, he only felt a little regretful that their advantage was no longer so obvious. However, even if they were unable to take down Broad Creed Mountain, he and his subordinates of the Sacred Sun clan would still be able to retreat unscathed, suppressing Yuan Zhengfeng and the others from outside Broad Creed Mountain, not daring to leave the clear Qi Grand Formation. This way, other than the Central Heaven region, the other 4 regions of the Heaven Domain, as well as the lands of the Wind Domain, would all be taken in by the Sacred Sun clan, allowing them to rampage as they pleased. However, Huang Guanglia would never have thought that a life-seizing formation would suddenly appear within the sky. If not for him having reacted in time and cut his losses, even he himself might have been sucked in by that black hole. Now, while he had managed to escape, the Sacred Sun clan experts who had come to Broad Creed Mountain this time had all been wiped out. They had even lost their clan's supreme treasure, the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler. At this moment, Huang Guanglia even felt that he didn't know how he should account for this to the past ancestors of the Sacred Sun clan. From a certain perspective, Huang Guanglia had made the same mistake as Yuan Tian, who had come to trample on Broad Creed Mountain previously, resulting in his defeat and death. As peak existences of the current Eight Extremities world, the 2 martial saints were also veterans of the Jianghu. Before they had acted, they would have held back a trump card to guard against any unexpected mishaps. However, the mishaps they had faced had truly surpassed their imaginations, being hard to predict beforehand. Therefore, tragedy had befallen both of them. While Huang Guanglia had fallen with the Great Sun Heaven Measuring Ruler, having barely managed to break free, Yuan Zhengfeng had not let him off. A heavenly broad creed palm mightily struck over. Huang Guanglia still had not stabilized his footing as he could only barely withstand it. However, after Yuan Zhengfeng's palm, he immediately followed up with a saber. Closely following the heavenly broad creed palm was the immeasurable heavenly saber. Huang Guanglia roared furiously, stumbling in retreat as he fled far away, no longer remaining. The east-coming martial saint who had left seclusion, wanting to sweep through all beneath the heavens in his first battle, had been badly battered and bloodied at the foot of Broad Creed Mountain. Yuan Zhengfeng was not in a hurry to give chase. Stepping between the heavens and the earth, he gazed in another direction. The two of you, what do you say? Their two extremely powerful auras existed. Originally, they had been in a stalemate, their attention now focused on that terrifying black hole in the sky above Broad Creed Mountain. After burying the people of the Sacred Sun Clan and the Heavenly Thunder Hall, that terrifying black hole finally began to slowly vanish. Yuan Zhengfeng, a voice that was low like rolling thunder, resounded. This move of your Broad Creed Mountains was really played beautifully. Yuan Zhengfeng gazed silently in the direction of the voice. Shen Li, wanting to take advantage of my Broad Creed Mountain. Your Heavenly Thunder Hall should have anticipated the outcome of your failure. The aura of the Green Thunder Martial Saint Shen Li surged, shaking the surrounding heavens and earth as unsuppressible flames of fury were contained within. Humph! That black hole is a dimensional passageway in reverse. It leads to the 9 underworlds, right? Your Broad Creed Mountain is indeed in cahoots with the decimating Abyss 9 underworlds. Turbid Wave Pavilion cannot tolerate you, and the painting Saint Old Man Mo will also not sit by and watch. Now that you, Yuan Zhengfeng, have become a martial saint, will you be able to stand against everyone under the heavens? Shen Li said in a heavy tone. Chu Yan, what does your Infinite Boundless Mountain say? The current chief of Infinite Boundless Mountain, who wielded the heaven-cleaving axe, the northern peak towering sky, Chu Yan, was silent. The vigorous aura of the heaven-cleaving axe shook slightly, but it did not show any enmity towards Broad Creed Mountain, just seeming to be very wary of the Great 9 Underworld's door that had just appeared in the sky in reverse. Yuan Zhengfeng chuckled. Shen Li, after mixing around with old unreasonable Huang for so long, you have also fallen for that bad habit of him of slandering others. Shen Li said coldly, the circulation of your Broad Creed Mountain's Guardian Grand Formation actually opened a passageway to the 9 underworlds. This is indisputable. On the thunder-shocking peak, Yan Zhaoge raised his eyes to look at the sky, looking at the clear Qi Grand Formation that had turned from dark red to white once more as he said slowly, Hall Lord Shen misunderstands. In addition to exterminating the decimating abyss, in order to prevent the descent of the 9 underworlds, our clan went all out, finally relying on our Guardian Grand Formation to seal the door to the descent of the 9 underworlds. It is just that this placed a great burden on our clan's Guardian Grand Formation. If we were attacked by external enemies again, it would inevitably be unable to bear the burden, resulting in the abnormality just now occurring. We were also very surprised by such a result. Fortunately, the passageway was in reverse. Our clan really made a great sacrifice, bearing a great risk for the safety of the 8 Extremities world. For the 8 Extremities world, for the human realm, my Broad Creed Mountain is duty-bound to do so, also not expecting any repayment. We just hope that our fellow Taoists can understand a little. At the very least, don't come touching our clan's clear Qi Grand Formation. Otherwise, no one can guarantee what else might happen. It can also be considered that everyone is of one mind, resisting the calamity of the 9 underworlds together.